Welcome everyone to House of HuCards episode 3. Today we're going to be talking about our favorite Hudson Soft games. Really excited to have you all here. I'm joined today by Ian from Historic Nerd. Ian, this is your first time coming here. Ian's got a good YouTube channel. Odds are you're probably aware of it if you're watching this show, but if not, definitely check that out. It does a lot of streaming as well. And of course, we're joined again by Momotarou. Similar deal. He's got a channel, does a lot of streamings, got some videos up. Sometimes you go to Japan and you throw it in everybody's face. Look at me, I'm in Japan. And so yeah, how are you all doing today? Ian, let's start with you. How are you? And what have you been playing lately? You know, regardless of platform.
Doing pretty good, man. Sadly for me, I've been kind of obsessed with some Blender projects I'm working on.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent the last couple of days, well, God, I think it was last week, building a Phillips CDI controller in Blender in 3D. So I'm not sure if that counts in terms of
It's adjacent. Like, it's close enough.
Gaming, but I guess as far as like on stream, I finally played a longer form game all the way through on stream, and we beat Ocarina of Time. So there was that.
Oh yeah,
it was a pretty good time. Yeah.
How did that? Are your opinions of it? Have they evolved? Have they gone up or down?
I always liked. I always liked Ocarina of Time, at least back in the 90s when I beat it the first time with a bunch of friends back then. I always got my favorite thing ever when I was back in the late 90s when I beat it, was getting gripey about the ending and how Link just went home and didn't get to go to any of the parties that people were doing. I'm like, what is this bullshit? And so there was that aspect. But no, I always had a lot of respect for it, and fundamentally the game still works. And even with the N64's kind of, I guess, janky controller by modern standards, it still works pretty well because it's built and designed for it decently. So it goes pretty good.
Yeah, that was, there were 3D, RPGs before that game, but that one did it pretty well considering the technology at the time.
Yeah, for sure. I think for a 3D action RPG like that, I don't think much of that had really been done on consoles outside of the PC. So it was kind of...
Yeah,
how long did it take you to stream that?
Oh God, I want to say it was probably maybe 6 streams, couple hours a piece.
Wow.
I don't know how many it was, but it was a couple.
That's not bad. You've beaten it before, so you've largely knew where to go and stuff.
I beat it back in the 90s, over 25 years ago now at this point. So there were aspects where whenever I stream, I don't mind if people backseat game. So I don't really mind if people are like, "Hey, go over here and do that." I'm like, "Thank you."
Yeah, I think it helps.
Oh, it's inevitable.
It's like, what do I do? Yeah,
I'm not above that.
No, for sure. Yeah, it's better than looking over here, reading a guide or something, and losing your attention.
Yeah.
So would you say that's kind of like your main focus lately? Was that game and your Blender stuff?
Yeah, that and Blender was kind of my main focus this year, working on future video projects and building assets for that.
Very nice. Do you want to talk at all about what you're working on for your future video projects?
Oh, sure, yeah. We can go into that.
I'm definitely curious about that.
I'd love to hear about that.
How do you guys feel about the Phillips CDI?
I think it's bizarre.
Well, never mind. I'm just kidding.
It's interesting, it's like I'm not as interested in it as I would be, as I am in say the 3DO or something like that. But the games just aren't really for me, but it's interesting. I don't know. You're going to make some content about it, I guess?
Yeah, totally fair. Yeah. So essentially what I've been working on is, because the funny thing is, since Phillips essentially is no longer the company it once was back in the 90s and early 2000s, because it's been sold off and split away in a number of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
But finding those people and talking to them has always been kind of a fun endeavor. But something else I've discovered is that some of the folks from Fantasy Factory, basically the folks who made Hotel Mario and a couple of other games with Phillips CDI, are still around. I've tracked down the original voice actress of Princess Peach from the game.
From the
trying to get a hold of
the hotel.
From the Hotel Mario, yeah.
Okay,
so I tracked her down and trying to get in touch with her because apparently her husband was also a lead producer on the game as well. So trying to get in touch with her essentially. So found her, got to work some ways to try and talk. She did an interview a couple of years ago, but just gathering sources and stuff like that. And it's been pretty fun, gathering information, because there really isn't a lot of known items about that, basically. So it's just one of those pieces of video game history that really isn't explored or much is known, because no one's really dug into it. And I remember I made a video probably 5 or 6 years ago now, diving into trying to contact Jan Timmer and talk to him about Phillips CDI, and just absolutely failing in that endeavor. And it's always been an intriguing thing to try and contact these people that have been in the industry, but a lot of them just don't don't want to talk about it. And the Phillips CDI is even more intriguing because it was just a part of that multimedia revolution that kind of defined the late 90s. Well, I guess the early 90s, in the sense that people weren't just trying to replace the computer and VCR. They wanted them all to be a singular box in your living room. And that was kind of the most interesting idea that I thought came out of the 90s. And we're kind of getting back to that now, with TVs having all that stuff integrated into them, with as far as like your streaming platforms and stuff like that, but not to the same extent where you can put a game console in there. But interesting ideas, right?
Yeah, a valiant idea. And, I think probably, maybe the PS2, PS3 sort of were, I guess, maybe the peak of that kind of idea. But somebody had to do it first. And, there were several, I think the 3DO's in there too. It's like took a big swing at
3DO.
it.
I think Saturn took a jab at it too with their VCD card and all that.
Yeah, I think, and the neat thing was, like, it was all over the marketing back then. Like the 3DO, they were all about multimedia, right? So they were selling it in a lot of aspects. Where ironically, Sony, despite being this massive force in in just the global living room in terms of like your television, your hi-fi electronics pieces, we're all Sony. Like the Sony was the one everyone respected. But when they made the PlayStation, they're like, no, this is first and foremost a game machine, as opposed to being, a multimedia device for your home. So they they knew what they were selling to people, and they didn't try to like masquerade with other things, like selling a product that had movies on it and things like that, when the technology clearly wasn't there. I mean, the CDI was a fantastic video platform, like video quality a bit better than, probably on par or a bit better than VHS. So it had that capability, which really kind of set it apart from, like, because I know Saturn had the video cartridge, but it really wasn't that good. 3DO could do video as well, but it really wasn't that great. But ironically, at that point in time, it was the video that you were getting off of those was better than most MS-DOS machines could provide you at the time. So intriguing things like that.
Yeah, it's funny because the Sony could have easily marketed the PS1 also as a VCD player because it had an MPEG-1 decoder in it. So they could have easily just added the capability to play VCDs and be like, this can be your VCD player as well. But they never did.
That is kind of interesting. They never did, yeah. When reading the book, Revolutionaries at Sony, which has some fun interviews with, I'm blanking on his name, but the father of the PlayStation. And
Ken Kutaragi.
Ken Kutaragi, thank you. And his vision for it was, first and foremost, it's a game machine. And so that was always very intriguing. He kept it very true to that vision, and I think that's probably a part of why it did so well.
Yeah. Could have also been a piracy reason why they wouldn't allow VCDs to work, because once you let VCDs work, then all kind of CDs can be played. So
I could see that, and also like licensing and other things that they probably would just like, nah.
And that was they sort of had their cake and eat it too a little bit too, I think, especially with the PS2 and PS3, where it's like, we're not really marketing ourselves as a multimedia device, although the PS3 sort of did later in its life. We are marketing as a game device that once you get it home, you will realize, oh, I can watch movies on this too. I can, DVDs, Blu-rays. So they kind of had their cake and ate it too by just marketing as a gaming device and turning out to be, more or less multimedia with USB ports and everything.
Yeah, there was an added benefit later.
Yeah. So anyway. Interesting. Yeah, I'll be looking forward to that CDI stuff. And yeah, man.
Yeah. It's a while out. I've been gathering a lot of information about it, and I haven't started writing the script or anything yet because I'm just piling up sources. But we'll see what happens. Maybe at some point this year I'll probably have a video out.
That'd be great. Yeah, take your time with it. Your videos are well researched and they're well presented. They're fun to watch. So by all means, take the time you need to get it the way you want it, man.
Yeah, but let me one more plug and then I'll let you move on. But then you said this now exists in 3D. This controller, which was a nightmare topography wise to model.
Yeah.
But it exists pretty well, and I think I did a good job on that one. And also,
you did. It looks great. I saw it on
right.
Your
yeah, that's right. I was bugging you.
Yep, it looks awesome.
Yeah, I was bugging you. But yeah, then now the Phillips CDI, a Model 220 now exists in 3D as well, and so I'm pretty happy with those models.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. Saru, what are you up to? What have you been playing? How are you? I know you finished Ease 10 not too long ago. Yep. You've moved on. I am curious your overall thoughts on Ease 10 real quickly too, because I still haven't tried it yet myself.
I loved it. It's a direct continuation from East Book 1 and 2. So if you're a big fan of the original East 1 and 2 games, it's good to go right into East 10. And chronologically, it just continues on from it. You see a bunch of familiar faces.
Yeah.
Like if you remember in East Book 2, they meet up with Dr. Flare. You travel with Dr. Flare. He's a reoccurring character. The game itself adds an element of like pirate boats and stuff, which at first I was kind of like, ugh, am I going to hate this? Like I hated that mode in ActRaiser.
I'm a little worried about that too.
But no, it was a lot of fun. It was way more fun than I thought it was going to be, to do all these like little things that I thought were going to be tedious. And then I got to a point to where like I'm like, F yeah, I want to blow up some other ships.
Nice
shit. And
yeah,
so
they seem
it ended up being a lot of fun.
They seem more nimble than like say the ships in the Assassin's Creed games that did them. You know, where it was like,
yeah, well, I mean, you can upgrade your ship. Like when you first start off, your ship is like super sluggish, but you could update like the speed of the ship and all your weapons, and it's cool. It's cool. And then they integrate that into like regular battles. So like there's like these like things that you go like different islands, right, that you have to like conquer because they're overrun by like demons. And then when you beat the pirate ships, you know, or the demon ships on the outside, then you get to go to like an island and just like kill stuff all action RPG style.
Yeah.
And it's rad. I like it.
That's awesome.
A really good game.
That's right.
Now I did start Tokyo Xanadu. Oh my gosh. I don't know if I can do another game that's long like that, you know?
Yeah. That's a big one.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. So is that, well, you've been playing some Evercade too, right?
Yeah, so I've been trying to do like weekly Evercade streams just to try to get more people interested in it. Mm-hmm. And in the beginning, like nobody was really watching, but now like people are coming to like join in, or people will be like, "Oh yeah, I have an Evercade," and it's a cool little console. I mean, it's like a little emulation thing, but you know, it's one of the only ways you're gonna own like some of these like Toa Plan arcade things that are officially licensed by Tatsujin Corp. So it's a neat little device.
Yeah. There's a Data East one, I think, too, right? That has some really cool games on it. There's like a Namco one that I think has Splatterhouse Wanpaku Graffiti, if I remember correctly, or one of the Splatterhouse games.
I think the Namco ones,
or Dragon Spirit.
I think so. I think it has. Yeah, it's got like Dragon Spirit. It's got, I don't know. I don't think Splatterhouse is on them.
Maybe I fantasized that into. Maybe I just thought about that and wanted that.
That's possible, but the cool thing about Evercade is they have like actual like arcade carts that house like ROMs of the arcade games that you wouldn't normally get licensed in any other form. But then they have like home console stuff, and it's usually always collections. So you'll always get like, you know, anywhere between 2 to 10 games a cart for them.
Which is a good value, I guess. I would like to see more individual releases on that thing. I think that would... For someone like me, I'd rather just get the games I want, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot of like 2-packs too that are done by like certain developers too. So they'll do like, you know, a couple games. But I mean, like at the price that they sell them at, it's really not bad because you're getting like, you know, a whole collection of games for $24. So, you know, some of them are $30. It's fairly cheap. It's a pretty cheap console. The console's like $99.
And they're officially licensed, that's you know, so you're not like in some weird...
They're officially licensed, yep.
You're not like in a legal gray area, which...
Yeah.
I don't know when the hammer's going to come down on emulation. I really don't. But it's going to. It just is.
It's already kind of started.
Yeah, Nintendo definitely is. I think Sega, like every once in a while, Sega will do something that's a little weird. Nintendo's always been super like hard on it. It's just a matter of time until Supreme Court or somebody like just brings down the hammer and it's over. You know, playtime will be over. So hate to tell you.
Even sites like what is that? CD Romance, the place that has like all the translations. Like they don't have anything up anymore because they're afraid they're gonna get sued. So
yeah,
and I get it.
Yeah,
I mean, the Ron Paradise guy got hit with a multi-million-dollar fine or lawsuit.
Oh,
from, Nintendo into that.
Nintendo.
I think even Vim's Lair was in somebody's crosshairs at one point.
Oh,
I think.
Yeah, I think so.
But I just hear I'm not super like up to date on all that, but that I've heard about all those situations, and it's just going to get worse. So the more officially licensed things we get, the better, you know. So I'm all for it.
Yeah, that's one of the major things I like about the Evercade is the fact that you can actually buy a box and then buy an expanded library for it, and that's what kind of like absolutely kills me about the mini consoles that have been released, right? To where like the mini Genesis 1 and 2 have functional cartridge slots, but you can't buy like a cartridge or something for it to expand the library on the console. Despite
that would have been cool.
That would have they would have taken all my money, to be totally honest
Yep.
with you, because I would love to buy physical tiny copies of those games that work with the console to expand the system without having to modify it or do it in some other way. Like and the funny thing is, like with piracy, if you give the consumer a reasonable and affordable way to get these games, they will go with that. They're not going to pirate it. They pirate it because these things are unavailable or just too expensive, and that's what leads to that. Like streaming was a great example in the mid 2010s, where piracy was at an all-time low because the content was readily available at lower cost. And the second you make it more expensive, the second piracy explodes. So
Right.
like if you just give the consumer what they want, which is a reasonable access to these products, you're gonna make a lot of money.
Yeah. Even if the price isn't
100%.
even if the price isn't super friendly, just I would rather buy it. Especially now that they have a lot of these games, especially on PSN. Like I just did a video about PC Engine games that you can download on PS4 and 5. They have trophy support, they have leaderboards. I mean, there's cool features that make it fun to play, worth spending $8 or $9 and just, it's just a new way to experience it. I think it's cool. So,
Yeah.
That was an awesome video, by the way. There's a lot of stuff that I didn't even know was like available
I know.
on
Thank you.
PSN. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, I tried to bring it because I knew there was a lot of those I didn't know were on there until maybe just a couple of months before, when I was sort of thinking about the idea. Because I was thinking, well, there's a couple, like I knew about what was the one? I knew about the Shockman ones, and there were I think Parasol Stars I knew about, but like there's other ones I didn't even get to include, like Darius Plus. That's on.
Oh wow.
There's a Darius collection that has Darius Plus and Darius Alpha. So anyway, if I do a follow up, I'll definitely do that. Sorry, was there something else you've been playing you wanted to mention?
No. Oh well, I got my Polymega back, so I've been playing a bunch of random stuff on that.
Why was it gone?
They pushed out a firmware update that bricked my console.
Oh,
so
I've heard about that happening. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, with me, because I had one of the original beta units, because I was like one of the first beta testers for the console.
They just wanted it back.
So well, I mean, it ended up breaking the console because I had a completely different motherboard than the retail unit. And so the update didn't play nice with it, and it just got caught up in a boot loop. And so I sent it back, and they took the motherboard out and put another one in. They sent it back.
Dang.
Well, that's cool.
Well,
at least they did that for you. Yeah.
I bet.
Yeah, been putting it through its paces, and they gave me some video game freebies, which is cool. So I'm like, all right.
I've been on the fence a couple of times with that one, because I think the base unit, I'm not so concerned about the modules. I have other ways to play those games. But the base unit, being able to play Saturn and Sega CD and PS1 and Turbo CD right there, that's pretty freaking cool. Like, that would be really, really useful. But it's just like, after taxes and shipping, it's like $600 or so now. It's like,
yeah, it's expensive. See, when I got mine, I paid like $299 for it because I was an early adopter. I had pre-ordered the thing before, like I got it like a year after pre-order. So I got in at a really good price with it. But like personally, like I don't know that I would be able to afford to pay $599 for it if I was interested in it, especially with other things out there like the Takyudon thing that just got put out. That well, it's not out yet, but they just put the pre-orders out for it. What is it called? It's like the Retro Station, I believe. And the Retro Station's gonna have, it's an FPGA like PS1 thing.
Oh yeah, I heard about that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's gonna have a actual like CD-ROM dock that goes under it. And being that it's open FPGA means that people are going to be able to play whatever they want on it at some point, like it's going to be community driven. So people are going to be able to make all sorts of cores for it, or modify existing Mr. cores for it already and then play, that means you can pop in your PC Engine CDs or, maybe your Saturn CDs if the board's, strong enough to do so. And that thing's like $200 maybe.
Yeah, that's worth it.
There are much cheaper options.
Yeah, that'd be neat though. Having the association with the Mr. cores, that takes it up a notch for me, just in terms of value. But yeah, I mean, like you said, once the community gets a hold of it, I imagine just about everything back before it would probably be able to run. I don't know if necessarily it would, but likely would. I don't know about Saturn though. Saturn would be neat, but I just feel like that's such a hard one to emulate and get. I have yet to be able to get that system running on anything other than the system. So
Yeah, like even on the Steam Deck, there are games that have issues with it. Like
really?
most of them run really well because Steam Deck is kind of a beast for a portable device, but
Hmm.
it still has some games that don't run quite right. But that's the one thing the Polymega does right is its emulation. Its emulation is on point. So like Saturn stuff runs perfectly on it. I haven't had any issues with any Saturn games, and I have a pretty big library. I've got like 100 Saturn games, and I haven't had any issues with any of them. They all
Nice.
run great.
I love the Saturn, man. I'd love to play it more. It's just all I got is my old Saturn, and I'm almost afraid to use it at this point because it's just so freaking old, and I haven't gotten
Yeah,
it
there's all
recapped or
kinds
anything.
of there's have you seen the Saru? You can always get the Saru. That's like a FPGA cart thing. That's what do you call it? ODE alternative
Right.
that you can get
Mm-hmm.
that runs most of the games. I think it's got like a 90% compatibility rate.
Yeah, I could live with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Yeah, I'll definitely look into that. I forgot about that. I remember hearing about it a while back, but I don't know. I just didn't jump on it.
They're like $60 too. They're not expensive.
Well, now you're really speaking my language. Yeah.
What, you mean I can't retire with my Saturn CD collection anymore? No, no.
Oh, for God's sake, maybe. You got to play your cards right. Let's see. I've been playing. You know what? I had a lot of fun. I got my wife to sit with me. She actually wanted to do it. I wasn't like, sit down and play this with me. I didn't have to, cajole her into it or talk her into it or anything. For whatever reason, she was interested in seeing Metal Gear Solid all the way through. And I was like, oh, I'm going to pounce on this opportunity. So me and her sat down, I think it was maybe 3 or 4 sittings, a couple hours at a time. Kind of like what you were talking about, Ian, with Ocarina. And, it was just, I haven't played that game in probably 10 years or so. I've played it a lot of times, but it's been a long time since my last time playing it. And, man, that game is so freaking good, man. It holds up. Some of the writing and some of the lines, are hokey and over the top. And sure, it's a late 90s action movie made by a, Japanese team of game developers, right? So, but, God, it was so good. And I got the good ending with Meryl living and just about broke my arm in the torture chamber. I don't know if you guys intimately know the Metal Gear Solid game. You guys...
I don't. I
Really?
stopped at the PS1 game. I played the PS1 game, and that was about as.
Well, that's what
far
I'm
as I
talking
got
about. Yeah,
with it.
the PS1.
And the old game. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Just Metal Gear Solid 1. Yeah. And still probably my favorite game of all time. If I had to pick one, that's still probably it. So really solidified my opinion of that because I've always said that, in past 10 years or so, whenever someone asks me my favorite game, I instinctively say Metal Gear Solid. And, I was a little worried that maybe it wouldn't hold up. The graphics are definitely rough and all that, but man, so much happens in those codec conversations. I mean, if you can just sit back and watch, the Secretary of Defense takes over the operation and arrests the colonel, and then the Secretary of Defense gets taken off by the president. It's just so much, political intrigue happens and so many twists and turns. Not all of them need to be there. Sometimes it's kind of outrageous. And it feels like an anime sometimes, with the way, some of the directions it goes. But man, it's so
I need
good.
to give it another chance because I got the original Metal Gear Solid and I spent most of my time on the VR missions.
Yeah, those are great.
Those are fun.
Yeah, they released a whole disc of those, remember?
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, those are great.
Get through that.
I love all those.
Point.
Yeah, I love all those. Just the one, even just the ones included on the base game are worth playing. But yeah, that Metal Gear Solid VR missions, that game that came out, that's a great time. Those are awesome.
So how did your wife like it overall?
She liked it. She's 7 years younger than me. Okay, so a lot of things that I think are amazing, she thinks are super cringe, right? Just by nature.
You don't understand, sweetie. This was innovative at the time.
and yeah, I felt like an old man, like, this is how it used to be, but it really was. I think she could see it. She could appreciate it through the same lens that maybe like I would appreciate, 12 Angry Men or something. It's kind of like that. It's like I wasn't around for black and white movies, but I get it. I see the charm. That's a little bit.
In my day, controllers had 2 buttons.
Yeah. There was jump and there was attack and maybe pause, But yeah, she had a good time. She particularly thought the Psychomantis stuff was interesting. You know, the way it read my memory card, and Psychomantis mentioned that I'm a fan of Castlevania in the game. You know, so she found that interesting, and you know, she was pretty enamored by that. She liked Otacon, of course. Who doesn't like Otacon? And but yeah, she enjoyed it. You know, and it was great for me to run through that again, because it's one of those games that I try to every couple of years play all my favorite games. You know, I don't always get around to it every year, but within every 3 or 4 years, I try to do that. And I really just hadn't played Metal Gear Solid in a long time, and it took me a minute to get back into the flow of it, because it's very top down, and you know, they hadn't really standardized a lot of the controls and stuff. So so there's a curve there, but once you get over that little hump, you know, by the time by the time you fight Vulcan Raven in the snowfield, you know, maybe 15% into the game, you're over the hump, you know, and you're in it. It's just so good. So it just kind of sucks you in, man. It's so good. So that was a blast. I've also been doing a little bit of PC Engine shopping. I got a couple good deals on eBay. I got Meguri Jingoku, I want to say.
Jigoku Meguri? Yeah, that's that Taito game, right? With the balls.
Yes, it's a Taito, yeah.
You know, the game with the balls.
It's a very Taito game, yeah.
Got balls.
And the guys...
It's a cute one, I like it.
Yeah, I like it. You know, and I've been waiting for a deal that's like under $40, you know. And
oh wow.
Yeah, well, what I'll do is I hate to say it, but sometimes I'll just lowball these dudes. I'll just send them these like borderline insulting offers. And 80% of them are ignored, 10% of them are declined, and then every once in a while, they're just like, sure, you know, and I'll just get it. And every once in a while, I'll notice, I'll try to give someone another offer, and it'll tell me the seller is not accepting offers from you at this time. Because I guess they got mad.
Get out of here, cheapskate.
I mean, it's not my finest hour, I guess, but it's just say no. You know, I'm not hurting anybody. Whatever.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
I list stuff on
if
eBay.
they take it.
I list stuff on eBay, and people send me low balls. And if it's, I mean, sometimes I've done it if I just want to get rid of it.
Yeah, same here. Sometimes you just want to sell that item, or you just want to, you know.
Yeah, if I'm just trying to unload something,
whatever.
I bought it 10 years ago. I don't really care what the profit margin is at this point. Like, if I just want to get rid of it, you know, if it's not like ridiculous.
You know,
so
item fell off
I'm
the
just
truck.
a hoarder, so I hang on to everything.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah, I see that. Yeah, I like. Is that like one of those news station TVs back there behind you, like right behind your head?
Oh, here?
Yeah.
PVMs.
PVMs. Yeah, those are great.
Yeah.
Is
They're
that like 17-inch Sony one?
Those from here?
The one, no.
Oh, this is a 13-inch Sony.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they used to be big in news stations back in the day.
Yeah, they're really nice because they have like a much higher pixel density, so like the image quality is really nice.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't used to believe there'd be that much of a difference. So I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, it's
amazing.
huge, man. Like I tap in through S Video on the one I have. I have like a 17-inch one.
Oh yeah, N64 S Video on one of these looked great. Like
I would connect the PCFX to it, S Video, and it looked great.
Oh yeah, they're made for S Video. S Video is perfect for those, and component as well. So to get a little bit back into the emulation conversation, I do want to get your all's thoughts on the Retron GX that was just announced for pre-order from Hyperkin. This console was announced about a year ago, and you know there's been whispers of little bits and pieces of information about it ever since then. But you know you can actually pre-order it now. Comes out just in a couple of months. I think it's about $90. You know, at least at this point, it may go up with tariffs or whatever. I don't really know. But right now the base price is under $100, and I think that's kind of, you know, my instinct on that is that this is really serving an interesting group of people, because right now to play TurboGrafx and PC Engine games, you basically have emulate them for free or pay $200 plus for either the Analog Duo or an original system
or whatever,
or some other means. So that creates kind of a big gap, I think. And this service is, right in the middle there, right about $100 or so. Have you guys looked at that, or you have any opinions on this?
Yeah.
What are you thinking?
Well, I don't know. Do you know about it, Ian? Have you heard about it?
I remember seeing something about this. I think like 2 years ago or something like that.
Yeah, it's
been like 3 years ago actually.
I thought it came out already. So
a long ass time ago.
I'm like, I thought it was out and about already. I'm like, oh, cool.
Yeah,
it's been a few years since they announced it.
I'm not sure what happened there. It got announced, like low-key announced a long time ago, and just hasn't really materialized since. So
yeah,
but now we're there.
I personally think it's gonna be booty ass.
Really?
Ask me. I think it's gonna. Yeah, I think so, because it's not gonna have any CD support, right? In any kind of way. It's gonna be behind an emulator backend as well. So it's like you may as well just get any other emulator thing. And it's not going to play things like, your EverDrives or anything like that. And being that it's a Retron console, and I've had a Retron 5, like, I don't know, 8 years ago or whatever, that console had the worst death grip when it came to your carts. Like, you'd put it in, and then I'd have to, like, put, like, my foot on the console, and I'm, like,
oh, geez,
tugging away, trying to get it. Yeah, so think about putting
scary.
in, your copy of Magical Chase or Koryun in that or something,
Yeah,
it's
no
like,
way.
You don't want those contacts to be like pulled out by some, cheap China console. Like I would be afraid personally. But I mean, I guess if you don't have anything else, so here's the conundrum with that though, is that TurboGrafx and PC Engine is already not a cheap console to collect for. So if you're buying a lot of games, like what are you going to buy them for like the cheap, $20, $30, $40 games that are ass? No, you're going to buy them for, the action games that you can play, and everything that's on the US library is already pretty expensive. So, you get a Bonk game, for example, Bonk's Revenge, if it's like $100 now or something.
Oh, is it really? Good Lord.
But I mean, like outside of that, like outside the internet, like finding TurboGrafx games anywhere in the wild, at least out here in the Northwest, is giant pain. It's a giant pain in the ass. Like you do not see them anywhere.
Much less the rare ones,
Yeah.
So who are they making this for? Like who are they making this console for? Like I don't get it. I don't get the market.
I hear you. I think you bring up a lot of good concerns. I think they're probably just looking at it from that price differential perspective, because there's the free emulation you can do on your computer or whatever. And then there's nothing in between that and $200+ machines, like the Analog Duo and I think they're just looking at that and assuming that there's a market there. Maybe there's not, but
I don't think no matter. Oh, sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say I don't think it's a crazy assumption. They could end up being wrong, and there's not a whole lot of evidence for that. Like you said, if you're buying TurboGrafx games, you're probably ready to invest in a Duo or something anyway, right? So they could. It
almost feels like. I almost feel like they're banking on that, like getting this thing in a random corner of Walmart where someone's walking through and they have some vague memory of the TurboGrafx when they were a kid and they just grab it because it's like, $80, $90. And it just fits that like easy grab criteria for somebody looking for it. But like, with the rarity of TurboGrafx games, I feel like this would have to be targeted pretty heavily at people that already have a collection of titles. Because like, you're not going to find those things outside the internet.
Right.
Very easily, unless it somehow comes with the pack in.
And if you have a collection of titles, you're going to already have probably a better way to play them.
You'll probably have a TurboGrafx or PC Engine, right?
PC Engine or something.
So the assumption is that there's people out there with games to play, but no hardware to play them on, I guess.
Right? And so that's weird. That's what I'm saying.
20
who are they marketing it to? Like, who are they marketing that to?
We'll find out. At this point, though, with how few options we have, I'm all for it, I guess. I'm all for it existing. Is it my way of playing? The lack of CD support kind of eliminates it as being my way of playing. I got the Duo and I got the EverDrive, the new EverDrive on the Duo.
And that plays CDs too. So if you have a EverDrive Pro, then all you need is a regular PC Engine. You can probably get one of those for like, $50, $60 for just and there's bare bones one.
And there's even a couple caveats with that, but even still, that's way more of a holistic way to go about it than something like this. That said, SD card slot means, EverDrive support isn't really probably necessary once it gets jailbroken. Load up your ROMs, get in there. You're still not going to have CD games, I'm assuming, but you could at least get all the HuCards, So we'll see. I'm curious about it, and my thinking is basically just the more the merrier at this point. We don't have enough options to get super picky just yet, with Turbo and PC and stuff. We have.
And if it's like anything like the Retron was hackable. I remember people were putting custom firmwares on it because I think Hyperkin already stole a bunch of firmwares for that. That was the big controversy with that, is that they stole a bunch of firmwares and then sold the console with all these like stolen emulator I'm not firmwares, I'm dumb. BIOS, right. The BIOS files. They stole a bunch of BIOS files that were already existing, and just decided, hey, you know what? No one's going to notice or whatever, and people did. So people were hacking them. No one some nerd. But yeah, that was a big thing. But if that's possible, then maybe on the Retron GX, you can probably, people can load up their own BIOS files and maybe play CD stuff or something.
We'll just have to see what the internal RAM on that thing is.
Yeah,
if it's got enough horsepower to run those games, which I imagine it easily could.
It should, yeah. Any cheap whatever ARM processor or whatever will probably do it.
Yeah. So we'll just have to wait and see. I'm curious about it though, and if it is halfway decent, I'll have no problem recommending it to people just because of that gap between, having nothing and spending, almost $300 just to get going, just to get started with the system.
Yeah.
So
it's funny though, because even though I think it's going to be ass, I'm probably still going to buy one because I buy anything that plays PC Engine.
Yeah.
Cause I'm like morbidly curious about it.
Yeah, me too.
Like I know it's going to be ass, like for sure, but I am very morbidly curious about it.
It's not going to be our way of doing it,
right.
It's probably not really for us. I think like Ian said, it's for people that are like, they see it out somewhere at some convention, or they see it at, Walmart or wherever, probably marked down 2 years from now. And they think, oh, I think Grandpa still has Bonk's Revenge up in the attic. I'm going to buy this and I'm going to go get Grandpa's to get up in the attic and get me Bonk's Revenge. And I'm going to play that for 2 hours. And then I'm going to stick it in a drawer and probably never look at it again.
They're banking on that.
Johnny, I didn't even, that's what I'm saying. They're probably, or like you said, conventions. I didn't even think about that, because like, when you go to conventions,
active convention circuit.
Yep. They go to it, and so they talk to people and make sure hey, carry it for your store, and they probably even do like consignment and stuff to get their stuff out there. So
yeah, that's how I got I got the Retron 77 that way. I got it from a convention, just impulse buy. It's like, oh yeah, I'll buy that.
Yeah,
still haven't used it.
That's what they're banking on. Like Ian was saying, if they get like a deal where they're in like a freaking Walgreens or whatever, and you're there, and you're like, it. I'll drop whatever.
Why not? It's $100. I got it. It was payday today. I can splurge on this.
Meanwhile, it's still sitting. It's still sitting over here, completely unopened, like 3 years later.
Yeah,
but that's
I have
fine.
one of those Genesis ones. I played it like twice.
Oh yeah.
What I'll say about the Genesis Minis though is they're like little works of art in terms of the little detail work they did on them. And
no, those are great. I'm talking about the Hyperkin one. The Hyperkin one is like whatever. No, the minis are nice. Those are like, I didn't M2 like
M2 did it,
make those. Yeah,
same
so those are great.
Same thing with the Turbo Mini.
Yeah,
M2 worked.
Yeah, you got like the Hyperkin, like they're like I think it was like the NES standalone Hyperkin was garbage. Like just wrecked your cartridge when you plugged it in. And then, like,
pins
God, it was like you put it in there, you just hear it scrape the second you pulled it out. You're like, you're like, why? Why are you doing this?
Yeah,
because we are Hyperkin.
Mm-hmm.
This is how we do it.
Why do you hurt me?
All right, gentlemen. Well, let's move on. I'm glad we got a little talk about that. By the time this episode gets posted, that may be old news. Retron GX may be out. We'll see. I've been pretty slow to get these up. But good to get everybody on the record there. Okay, so let's talk about Hudson Soft a little bit. Hudson Soft, as you probably know if you're watching this show, certainly you two do. This was the company that partnered with NEC. They were basically handling the software side, NEC handling the hardware side. NEC, who you may recognize from the mediocre monitors at your job, or some electronic that you've seen randomly out and about. I think they were a lot bigger in Japan, but you see NEC everywhere. I mean, you'll see them if you look for them. So anyway, Hudson Soft was founded in 1973 in Sapporo, Japan, by brothers Yuji and Hiroshi Kudo. Is that right, Saru? Am I pronouncing that right?
Yep, Hiroshi Kudo.
Initially, the company focused on selling communications equipment and art, but by the late 1970s, Hudson Soft shifted its focus toward computer software and hardware, which in the 70s, pretty forward-thinking. In 78, Hudson became one of Japan's first companies to distribute third-party software for microcomputers. And, basically software, etc., but in the 70s. So they gained prominence in the early 80s by ultimately developing and publishing games for popular Japanese computers. I believe the Sharp, they had something before the X68K or 86K, whatever that is. Whatever the one that came before that, that was something that they made games for. I think X1 or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, as the gaming industry changed, so did Hudson. They became a major third-party developer for Nintendo's Famicom, also known as the NES, producing notable titles like Lode Runner, Bomberman, which we all know, Adventure Island, which we all know, solidifying Hudson as a key player in the Japanese gaming market. And by the mid-'80s, this is where PC Engine comes into play. They wanted to create their own console. They wanted to keep going further. They wanted to keep innovating, keep pushing. So they ultimately partnered with NEC to handle the hardware, and they came up with the PC Engine, which, yet another, this was sort of, I think, a reference to these brothers. They had this interest in trains. So that's why I think Hudson was the name of a train, right, that they liked. And so the PC Engine also kind of another reference, another sort of train reference. So kind of interesting there. The console launched on October 30th, 1987 in Japan, and, was fairly successful. It, had powerful hardware for the time, compact design, impressive graphics. I mean, this made the PC Engine really perfect for the Japanese market at that time. Perfect competitor for Nintendo and Sega, who, I think they outperformed Sega by quite a margin and nearly caught Nintendo for quite a while. Were more or less neck and neck with them.
Well, I think in Japan they actually beat them. They beat Famicom at least by 87, 88. They were beating the pants off the Famicom.
Really? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And it took a while for the Super Famicom to actually get a foothold.
Yeah.
PC Engine was number one for a while.
Sadly, that success did not transfer over into the West.
Yeah.
And we talked about that a little bit on the first episode.
A lot of reasons for that.
A lot of reasons,
Yeah.
yep. And we've all talked about it to death, I think really the main thing was probably timing. Because by the time it came out here, it had missed its moment. It just kind of missed its moment. The Genesis kind of took the baton and ran.
Unnecessary redesign.
Yeah, and just took way too long with it. Anyway, like you said, Sar, if they had just released a black PC Engine, just make it black and launch it.
Put it out.
Just get it out. And who knows? Who knows where we'd be right now? Anyway. So PC Engine was a major milestone for Hudson Soft. It established them as a software developer and also an influential force in video games at large. So huge distance traveled from just a couple of brothers running a little electronics store in an obscure building in Japan somewhere, right? Pretty amazing story. Now, following the decline of the PC Engine and the Turbo, Hudson continued working with major publishers like Nintendo, Sega, and Konami, namely. Working on big properties like Mario Party. They worked on some of those games. They would, of course, put out another Bomberman game here and there to kind of keep the lights on. And co-founder Hiroshi Kudo left the company in November of 2004. And that was sort of a big watershed moment for them. And, I'm not sure when the discussion started happening, but at some point shortly after that, they started looking to sell. And ultimately, that happened with Konami in, I think, 2011, I think, is when that started. And 2012 is when that was more or less finalized. They dissolved all the subsidiaries of Hudson Soft. They moved their talent around within Konami. I mean, really, Hudson got pretty much gutted. And it was mainly just, Konami wanted that IP. And they wanted that name, Hudson, so they could slap it on games. And so 30-somethings and 40-somethings like us will see it and go, oh, yeah, I remember. Okay, yeah, I'll buy that one. And
Japan was really interested in reselling Peach Boy, actually. It was like one of the ones they really wanted to sell was the Momotarou Dentetsu series.
Yep.
It's a very beloved series by Japanese people.
I like the shooter. I like the shooter one.
They were the train games, or what, that series where Momotarou is, you're like building tracks and stuff.
I haven't played
so
that
Japan
one.
loves that shit. Because they're like unplayable to us, but like Japan absolutely loves it, and the series is still running to this day. And so Hudson really
Momotarou is just a massive character in himself there, right?
Yeah.
Like in terms of but it makes me think of, so like I did a video years and years ago, like where I think in like the late 90s someone found the original film for Momotarou was basically a Momotarou animated film that was funded by the Imperial Navy in like 1943.
Oh wow.
And so it was like one of the first feature-length Japanese animated films ever made, and it was a pure like propaganda piece.
I was about to say, like, how
of,
propagandistic was this?
It had its elements. Essentially, it deals with Momotarou attacking basically Pearl Harbor, so it has those elements to it.
Good. That's exactly what I was hoping for. Good.
Yeah, and it's well animated. It has a lot of interesting things, and what's really intriguing about it is it demonstrates at a point in time where American animation was influencing Japanese animation. So a lot of the characters look like Bluto from Popeye the Sailor Man. So a lot of really intriguing elements there. Sorry to completely derail the conversation,
No,
but the fascinating thing about Momotarou.
No, I gotta find this now.
Yeah, I was about to say.
It should be free on YouTube. If you look at Momotarou and I think the Sea Eagles or Sea Avengers or something like that, you should be able to find it.
I'm making a note right now to find that and drop that in for at least a few
You got a spare
seconds.
43 minutes, you can check it out. They're animated tanks and bears and other creatures flying Japanese carriers and strike aircraft. It's fantastic.
God, poor Momotaro. Him and Doraemon just storming Pearl Harbor, I love it.
For the Emperor.
God. That was a misstep for Japan, perhaps.
Yeah, at the time. Yeah,
a little bit of
Just a bit.
kind of
there's a lot of historical discussion we could dive into here, but that's like 2 hours of dissertation to go into about post Tokugawa Japan and industrialization into, oh god, what was the Meiji era, right?
Yeah.
bit off more than they could chew. We'll just leave it at that.
Sorry for the derailment.
This could turn a World War II podcast. We gotta be careful.
Yeah.
Hey, these things are connected. I don't want to go too far off the rails, but the connection is there.
Yeah,
especially
something else.
Sorry, go ahead, Ian.
Sorry. Yeah, this was going to be taking it back from World War II Japan to mid '80s Japan in the discussion about Hudson Soft, because they had become, I don't know if you talked about this before, you probably have, but when Hudson Soft was developing for Nintendo, they had that prized status of being basically a really trusted developer for Nintendo. And the interesting thing was that Hudson Soft was like, Nintendo, we can come up with a much better console right now. And they tried to pitch the idea, I always say TurboGrafx because I'm just so Americanized, but the PC Engine to Nintendo. And Nintendo, they've always had that mantra of like, you know what, we're making money, so no.
Yeah.
And so they're like, well, who can we work with to do this? And they're like, who wants to get into the game industry a bit? NEC.
NEC, baby.
Yeah, and man, I found some great articles where it was NEC was talking about their. I think if you watched my video about TurboGrafx forever ago, there's this amazing piece of information where NEC tried to basically arcade. Is there a word where you turn the TurboGrafx into an arcade cabinet with changeable cartridges and stuff? And that was something they wanted to try and approach, because I know
Neo Geo kind of ended up doing that, didn't it?
Yeah, Neo Geo, and ultimately there was a big push because Nolan Bushnell tried to do the same thing with an arcade company that he started that kind of floundered, where basically you could buy the cabinet and then buy cartridges so it would be cheaper over time, and that was a means of attracting people to purchase your arcade cabinets. So you could buy one and then
video, Ian.
Oh, the history of the. I want to say the engine history of the TurboGrafx. I want to say maybe I renamed it to the engine that should, or something.
Yeah, something like that. That was a great video.
But yeah,
that was a great video.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was an awesome video.
One of the first ones I tried to push 3D animation to the absolute ridiculous limits.
You did it.
Of me figuring it out.
You did. Hey, it looked good. It looked good,
Really?
especially at the time.
I got way better. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that's how I found your channel or not. It was one of those style of videos that you did. It might not have been that exact one, but it was one of those.
Yeah, what's funny for me is like that the only time I've ever been recognized as a YouTuber was this army sniper I ran into in Kuwait. It was like, dude, I watched your TurboGrafx video.
That's random.
I'm like weird.
You had to go all the way to Kuwait.
That was pretty funny.
Cool.
Just recognize it was just really funny that you recognized me. I'm like, oh, neat.
Big turbo audience in Kuwait.
American deployed personnel there, yeah.
When they're not getting invaded.
He probably heard your voice, and he was like, "Hey, it's that guy."
Wait a second, I've heard that.
Yeah,
I've heard it before.
Yeah, that's all it needs.
But yeah, so many fascinating things in terms of like you could really talk about like the missteps of the TG16 are just uncountable in terms of the weird stuff that NEC North America did. Yeah,
it's how to not launch a console.
Right.
Well, yeah, then like I don't know if you talked about like the fact that like so NEC North America was like, oh, we know guys that know video games. We got guys from Atari, and it's like guys from Atari computers, like nothing to do with the game division of Atari, like random things like that, where it was like every miscalculation you could possibly make, they just made. And then my favorite part was them bragging in other articles when they're talking about them trying to get into the arcade business, saying like, yeah, NEC spends more on R&D than these companies make in an entire year. Like just really cocky stuff like that, where NEC is just saying these very just condescending things to other companies, and then like arcade manufacturers were like, okay, put your money where your mouth is. Let's see these cabinets, and then like NEC tried to work with a distributor, and then they just ghosted them. I'm like never bothered to reach out to them, actually getting these things out and about. And it's like just real bad practices that NEC did around that era.
Yeah, just getting that stock price up, just get it up, and then get the hell out of there. Typical 80s behavior. So let's talk a little bit about some of these bigger Hudson games, and then we'll go into our personal favorites. First, got them up on the screen currently. Let's talk about the Bonk series. Bonk, aka PC Engine, was one of the PC Engine's most recognizable characters, using his oversized head to attack enemies. And the games really stood out at the time. Smooth animation, vibrant visuals, responsive controls, great level variety, great enemy variety. Bonk could do a lot of funny things. He could climb up walls with his teeth. I mean, he was a psycho, really. Sequel came. Bonk's Revenge was the sequel. Bonk's Adventure was the original. Bonk 3 came out as well on both HuCard and CD format, which, interestingly, is actually probably better on HuCard, I think, in most ways. And it actually went beyond that. Some people don't know. There was an NES version of Bonk. There was an Amiga version of Bonk, which is actually really, really a nice-looking version. I think there's a Super Nintendo sequel, Super Bonk, that I really like. I have that one.
Oh, never seen that one.
It's good. It feels like basically like what Bonk 4 probably would have been, more or less. It's kind of drives home that relationship between Hudson and Nintendo. Once the PC Engine died, it's like they went right to their best friend, pretty much. And then, I think there was some sort of PS2 weird looking game. I don't think it came out of Japan.
Yeah. PS2 and GameCube.
Yeah. And it's like part of a compilation or something. I'm not sure if it got its own standalone release. It might have.
It did.
Oh, it did? Okay.
That one and Adventure Island also got that PS2, GameCube, 3D treatment.
I don't find it very appetizing looking. I haven't actually played it, but I've seen videos of it. It exists. There was a reboot, which I found.
It's a game.
It is technically a game, I'm sure. And then, what I found really interesting was that there was a game called Bonk Brink of Extinction, which was planned. And that was going to be a digital game for PlayStation 3 and 360. And I guess it got fairly well into development. The story was about Bonk traveling to the center of the Earth so he could steer the Earth away from a meteor, as opposed to doing something about the meteor. He wanted to steer the Earth away from the meteor. I just find that hilarious. But that got canceled very unceremoniously in 2011. Which is fairly late in that generation. 2011 was
because of the bankruptcy.
Oh yeah, that probably that would have been it, and that would have been about when Hudson and Konami were getting together. So they were probably taking the axe to things. So maybe it just got caught up in that as well. So that's really it. As far as my research could show me, that's basically the last gasp of life Bonk had as a franchise. Now, we were blessed with multiple games, though. And, I don't know if the series is gone forever. I could see it coming back in one way or another at some point. Maybe, it could be one of those situations where, like, the guys that did Streets of Rage 4, they got they Dotemu, I think the name of that company, and Lizard Cube. They got together.
Does Konami often license out their stuff though to other people?
I mean, they're doing, they did Silent Hill with Bloober Team. They're doing Metal Gear 3 right now. So I think they're warming up to it. Certainly,
yeah, they did the Dead Cells thing too. With,
that's true.
Rondo and Dead Cells. So
that's true.
Maybe we can see him in some form like that, right? Some other game.
To test the waters,
something add-on or something, right?
I feel like we're more likely to just see a collection of Turbo/PC Engine games coming to modern consoles and it just being on there. That I feel like is probably the most likely thing. But yeah, I'd love to see a new standalone game. So anyway, what are our thoughts on this, Ian? What do you think of Bonk as a series? What are your feelings on it generally, and your experience with it?
So, for me, what's really intriguing about the turbografx and Bonk and all that was unlike you guys, I didn't really have a lot of exposure to the turbografx in the late 80s, early 90s, or 90s at all. Like, I didn't encounter it until probably 2007 was like the first time I encountered the turbografx, and I was kind of
really? Okay.
Yeah, so I really am kind of I guess a late bloomer in terms of experiencing turbografx. Like, it's over almost 20 years ago now.
Yeah.
But at the time, I was like, I've never heard of this thing. I'm like, how did I miss this? And almost kind of ashamed to say it, but like one of the first games I checked out was my buddy managed to score one for like $80 from a guy in Hawaii. And so we were playing Bonks on it. And I was like, this is pretty fucking cool in terms of like being like really colorful and definitely had great pacing and speed to it in comparison to other platformers from that era. So, and just uniquely different, especially with the way you could integrate the turbo functions into gameplay and like also like cheese maps in certain ways with Bonk. And I'm not sure if that was intended with the PC Engine, but it certainly came out that way when you were playing the turbografx with it.
It feels unintentional.
Yeah, like it just cheesing the hell out of the game when you do that. And it's just kind of a fun mechanic and a way to exploit the game in different ways. So it has a lot of ways to play it, and it was always pretty intriguing. And unfortunately, by the time I started looking into collecting Bonk, the franchise is kind of a bit more expensive than I want to spend, but it's a fun game to check out for sure.
Yeah, I think
it was always impressed by it, at least.
Yeah, it is. As a mascot character, I see why they went for it. You had to have something, and Nintendo had Mario and Sega had Sonic.
You told me Keith Courage wasn't a great mascot. Huh?
I mean, I think it should have been Legendary Axe or something a little edgier, personally. But yeah, I see the logic behind trying to put Bonk out there and say this is our guy. He looks like a baby kind of, and he's weird, but he's our guy. And the games are good. Once you play them, they're good. Nobody like hates Bonk games. Anyway, what would you say is your favorite one, Ian? Have you played them all, or?
I've only really played Bonk 1. I've checked out the other Bonks a little bit because when I deployed, I built a Raspberry Pi and loaded like everything on it.
Nice.
And so during the deployment, I was playing a bit of turbografx and checked them out. But like as far as games that like are most memorable to me from the Bonk franchise, it's Bonk 1 because I think I played that the most.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
that's the one where you can really do the cheesing. Like if you can get up high enough, you can glide through 80% of the rest of the level, probably, if nothing gets in your way.
Yeah, because its turbo spin is nonstop.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, that's
as to where in 2 they put in like that gap. They took into consideration the turbo, so he goes boom, and he stops for a bit.
Yeah,
so they don't get that momentum like in 1. Yeah,
they were like,
they're like, wait a second.
Yeah, y'all can't play Bonk, but not like that.
So excuse my ignorance, but with the PC Engine, was turbo stuff integrated into the controller or no?
It was, but it wasn't at launch. So like the white PC Engine originally came with a controller that did not have turbo.
Okay.
And then I think less than a year later, they made the white controller that did have turbo to match the white PC Engine. And then subsequent PC Engines would just all have turbo. So like the core graphics turbo, core graphics 2, everything going from the core graphics on automatically had turbo.
Yep.
So kind of explains why some games are like, oh, it didn't intend for it to work that way at all. Like, in
Right.
terms of-
You know,
yeah.
some older games even give you the option to do manual or auto because they were, you know, pre-turbo controls. So that's why when we got the TurboGrafx, we already automatically got turbo because the original turbo controller came out less than a year later for Japan. And so they just decided we're going to integrate that.
Which I think was a smart move. I think that was smart to do that. They made it part of the branding, right? The TurboGrafx.
Yeah.
You know, they made it like kind of gimmicky, but it was cool too because, you know, to get turbo, especially on some shmups where it's like you got to press for every shot, you know, good Lord, you know, you'll burn out your thumb. Like Truxton was like that. You know, and if you're going to play Truxton on the Genesis, you better find yourself a third-party controller with turbo function because it is one press for one shot. You know, that's just the way it is.
And I could do that as a kid, but like right now, like my hands are all like arthritic and shit. So like I need that turbo. Yeah.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Right.
But yeah, I honestly, even as a kid, I remember being annoyed with that. But yeah, I'm super like not about that now. Like, give me turbo or give me death, literally, because that's what.
The TurboGrafx spoils you too. Like, it spoils you for games going forward early on, right? Because you're like, if a console doesn't have turbo, it's like, man, you know, like everything that came afterwards was like, man,
they better find
turbo fire.
And again, you know, like the big reason why I got through the Metal Gear Solid torture chamber section as a kid is because I had a third-party PlayStation 1 controller with turbo. And I would press circle. I'd just hold down circle and Snake would survive. You know, I wouldn't have to. But of course, doing it over here, I don't have that. I was using an OG PS3 controller, so I'm spazzing out on it, you know. Not a way to be. Not a way to be if you can avoid it. So, yeah, I don't know. I think I like Bonk's Revenge the best. Saru, I don't know if you agree with me on that.
Same.
I feel like it's the perfect balance of all the ideas.
Yep. I feel like that's where it peaked, you know, when it comes to like the gameplay. The level design is a lot more thought out.
Yeah.
The music is excellent.
The music's great.
Revenge compared to, I mean, one had really good music too. I really liked the music in one, but I just think it peaked with Revenge.
I mean, the Bonk 1's riff just lives rent free in my brain most of the time.
The boss music is legendary to me.
Yeah. But I agree with you on that. Bonk's Revenge for sure is.
Yeah. And I like 3. I like 3 fine, but I feel like it was just Revenge, but with unnecessary new ideas that didn't really
the gimmick was dumb.
Yeah.
Where you like shrank and stuff.
Yeah. The Alice in Wonderland stuff was like, why am I shrinking and why am I huge? It was funny. But then after after doing it 5 or 6 times, it's like, I just want to play a Bonk game for God's sake. Can I just be Bonk?
It became tedious. Because there were bonus stages that just required you to like shrink and get big and shrink and get big. And it's like, oh man. This is
yeah, I know what you're talking about. Where you're going down.
Shooting. Yeah. You know, and I feel like they just shooed that whole thing in. And it's like, this is not good game design.
And what the hell was the volleyball thing in Bonk 3? You remember those?
Yeah, it's just another gimmicky thing.
I could never really like get good at that at all. It's horrible.
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell they want me to do.
I don't think they programmed it well, is what I think it is.
I hate to say that because that's what people say when they just suck at something. But
no, I think in this case it's true.
I think I'm blaming the game on that one.
Yeah.
But, you know, I liked it as a game. It's not a bad game, I guess, you know, in terms of platformers of its time. It's, you know, it's above average, I suppose. But Bonk's Revenge that's where it's at. You know, if you can only play one, play Bonk's Revenge. But certainly the first two. Because Adventure is close. You know, it's not like a huge quantum leap forward for Revenge, in my opinion. It's an iterative upgrade, but an upgrade nonetheless, you know.
I never owned the actual HuCards for those back in the TurboGrafx days. I wouldn't come to actually own them until the 341 Super CD. It was like Gate of Thunder, Bonk's Adventure, Bonk's Revenge, and then a secret Bomberman game.
Oh yeah,
that was in that. That was my first time owning the Bonk games. Was in that 3-in-1 Super CD ROM. Came with it was a pack-in for the Turbo Duo.
When you play those games on that CD, is the sound like sampled from like? Is it still using the sound chip the way that a HuCard game does?
It's still. Yep, it's still using the system's sound. So it's all PCM audio
Okay.
for it, and it's just using the hardware to replicate it. So it's just like you're playing the HuCards basically.
Right. I was curious if maybe they had sampled those songs and made them into WAV files or whatever. Or if they were
an arrangement would have been cool though if they had done like but it wouldn't have been possible because Gate of Thunder takes up pretty much the brunt of the CD.
Oh yeah,
it takes up all of the space because they had the complete Gate of Thunder game. So in order for that to had been possible, the other games had to be HuCards.
Mm-hmm.
There wouldn't have been the space to have music for them.
Yeah, so there's a lot of ways to play them. I believe I think you can get them on the PS3, on PSN, on PS3. You can get several PC Engine games on there. People don't realize. But that's even too obscure for me to make a video on. So I'm just people just won't know.
Okay.
I
know they had on the Japanese market. They had them.
Yeah, well, they're on the US one as well. But when you download them, they're called PC Engine. So you might, if you don't know what you're doing, it might be confusing. But yeah, they're on there because I bought them. I got like Soldier Blade and other stuff on there too. Speaking of which.
Soldier Blade. Yeah. Now this might be a stupid question for you guys, but as far as Soldier Blade always looked a lot like Blazing Lasers to me in terms of some of the elements. Like there are some differences, but seem similar. I haven't played it too much. I played it a bit.
I would argue it's a superior game to Blazing Lasers, though.
I can see that.
It's not that Blazing Lasers is bad or anything, but
graphically it certainly looks like they're pushing it a bit more for sure.
Yeah, it
came out later, so
it came out. I want to say 92. But really, I have this image up for the Soldier series in general. Kind of like how we just talked about the Bonk series in general. Even though Bonk's Revenge is kind of like the clear winner of that series. I would say Soldier Blade's probably the best of those Star Soldier games. I think this series started on the NES or the Famicom, and then Super Star Soldier, the sequel to that, was the first one on the PC Engine. And then they did, I want to say, Final Soldier after that, which didn't come over for whatever ungodly reason. It's an amazing game, and of course it wasn't the final one, but it was called that. And then they did Soldier Blade, and that came out everywhere. And that game, in my opinion, is the best one. I think you could make an argument for any of them. They're all incredible.
They're all good in their own right.
Yeah, but man, Soldier Blade, it's just like so perfect. Like the combat system it's immediately intuitive. We talked about this on the last episode, so I won't repeat myself too much. But arguably one of the best shooters of all time, certainly one of the best shooters on the Turbo, on the PC Engine. It's just borderline perfect. The only problem with it is, in my view, is it's just kind of short. It's even for shooters at that time. I mean, you can literally sit down and beat it in like 30 minutes, if you know what you're doing. Most people won't, but you could. And I think Blazing Lasers probably has a little more content, and some of the other later CD shooters, like Spriggan and some of those, they have way more stuff. But for its time, this was like peak turbografx. Soldier Blade was peak. So what are your all's thoughts on Soldier Blade and the the Star Soldier series in general? Ian, what's your experience with these? I know you've played at least one of them, haven't you?
Yeah, I played Soldier Blade. Like I played that one a bit. I'm not as heavy. I wish I had more prior experience with the TurboGrafx in my life. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so like for a lot of my experiences later on through emulation, because a lot of these games are just hard to find. But yeah, Soldier Blade, I checked it out because something that really impresses me with the TG16 PC Engine is just how well the shmup titles are engineered for them in terms of like, despite the console having limited resources versus like the Genesis and Super Nintendo later, the TurboGrafx somehow managed to take these games and still give you a very fluid and fast experience with basically less resources. So, and that was always the most intriguing thing about the TurboGrafx, that it just offered that experience. And like, so I played Blazing Lasers probably way more, and then when I played Soldier Blade, I'm kind of like, oh, interesting. This is a graphically improved just version of that. It's essentially in terms of just the fundamental mechanics don't really change in most shmup games, right? But
between those two, they're very similar.
Yeah, these looked great. And just kind of like, I don't know how they're going for it. But I don't really have too many deep thoughts, unfortunately. But just other than it, just definitely took the TG16 to an even further place that The funny thing is, I thought that Blazing Lasers was already pushing the console to what it could really realistically was the max of what it could do, but then Soldier Blade just looks way better and just continues that stable gameplay you're getting.
Yeah, a lot of workarounds. There's some debate as to whether or not the Turbo can do parallax scrolling, and I guess in its like most understood form, I guess that's true. It can't. But the animated tiles, I believe, is how they do it. They basically just animate the background, and there's a video out there that really explains it well. I forget the YouTuber. I subscribed to him though because I saw that and I was like, this is amazing.
But just lie.
Yeah,
stealing it.
But I mean, it's as far as your user experience goes, it's identical, right? It's the same effect, so it's cool. And even if it's just stars moving in the background, at different rates. That depth that you see when you're playing it, it's there, so as far as your user experience goes, it's great. Sorry, what do you think about these games? What's your experience with them?
I love them. They're great fun. I mean, like all of these older shmuppy doos are fun. We talked a lot about it on the last episode on which ones are my favorite, but like the Soldier series is it's decent fun. Like I have my favorites, but I do like them. Who was it? Was it developed by Hudson as well? Soldier games were, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I think it was just Blazing Lasers that was Compile.
Yeah, it was Compile. Yeah, I don't know if Hudson maybe published it or had a hand on it somewhere, but that was
I think they published it. I think they published it, and that's about it. And I think Compile is the one who actually developed it.
Yeah,
but
which you can tell because of the brains and all the weird shit like that.
Yeah, Compile likes to throw in that stuff.
Yeah.
But,
whereas
I like the Soldier games. I've got them all, and they're fun.
They're kind of standard bearer in a way. They're not. They don't reinvent the wheel, but they just get it done. They just do it right. The music's great. The levels are fun and different. The bosses are multi-stage. Some of the bosses come back in later levels. I mean, they just figured it out and they perfected it to one extent or another. And other games that had more interesting ideas were definitely right around the corner. I mean, even on that same system, I would argue something like Cybercore or Sinistron are arguably more creative, I guess, and conceptually. But man, these Soldier games, they're just such excellent standard bearers, and they just really filled out that library very nicely. They're
very easy to get into.
Yeah, easy to play, hard to master. They have, they had caravan modes and other stuff you could do, if you really wanted to. I think one of them had a boss rush mode. I don't know if it was Soldier Blade. It might have been Final Soldier. But anyway, there's different ways to play them, and if you can really get into them, spend days and days just playing these games. But yeah, like you said, not a whole lot else to say about them other than that. Plus, I don't want to repeat everything we did last week or on the last. Okay, so horrible cover art. This was one of the examples I think of when I think of not great TurboGrafx cover art that doesn't really convey.
And there's a lot of them.
There's a lot of them. Dungeon Explorer may be the worst, but this one's up there. Like, who is this guy? I don't know. I don't like him. But so this is Bomberman. This is synonymous with Hudson Soft. Bomberman, I think, started probably on the NES, or if not, I don't know, somewhere around in the 8-bit era for sure. And this was one that really blew up for them. This was one that, it had these grid-based levels. It, a lot of market penetration in eastern regions, western regions. Everybody liked it, especially when it wound up, I think, on the Genesis and the Super Nintendo. But my first experience with Bomberman was this one. It was on the Turbo. And it was that original one, very basic. I think Bomberman 93 and 94 are better. But this was such a good foundation for that series. I mean, you can go back and play this game right now and have a blast for several hours. It's a long game, a lot of levels, password system. Hey, buddy. And I love Bomberman. And, again, very indicative of Hudson. The music is absolutely perfection, super catchy. Characters are cute and funny. I still don't even really fully know all the characters. But there's Bomberman of different colors, and it ultimately became kind of more of a multiplayer party series. But in this form, this original game, what did you all think of it? Ian, start with you. What do you think about it?
So, absolutely love Bomberman in terms of one of the first games I played on it was like Bonk, and then my buddy had gotten the multi-tap adapter for it, or the turbo tap, whatever you want to call it. And so we had like 5 people playing it and just screaming at each other while we're playing freaking Bomberman 1 and just drinking and doing the whole thing. And just great party game in that element, playing the first game. And then for my deployment later, I kind of developed a reappreciation for it, where Bomberman 93, 94, I had those loaded on my Raspberry Pi. And we were playing those in this like little, forward operating base in the desert, playing this in a random shitty room on like whatever TV we could buy. And so we're playing it off my Pi on that. And we're just screaming at each other because I got the USB adapter, so I had 5 players going. And just absolutely shrieking at each other, where people are like opening the door and going, what the fuck is going on in here? In terms of people going like, wellness check, what's going on? And just such a timeless game in terms of like, you can pick it up, play it, and it's still fun. Like anyone could pick up this game, play it, and have a great time just killing each other, or even killing yourself when you're playing multiplayer is funny as hell. So it has those amazing elements to it. So like the game is timeless in that regard, at least the TurboGrafx iteration of it.
Yeah, for a game that's so meticulous and so plodding and can be relatively slow, at least at first, before you get all your power-ups and everything.
Yeah.
It's for a game that's that calculative, you can kill yourself a lot and very easily and very quickly. And that's probably the reason I die the most, is I trap myself, or I lose track of where I put a bomb and I forget about it and I get in the way of it.
Having 5 people going at it, that game, for like multiple hours, like it gets really intense because people get pretty good at the game in terms of like knowing what the power-ups are going to do, how your bombs are going to work, or the fact that like you can spam bombs, you get a plague where you randomly drop bombs, like just is great chaotic elements to the game that it only improved as a franchise went further on. And I feel like TurboGrafx has had just great versions of it.
Yeah.
One of those games that made it kind of a shame that they only had the one controller port, because there was on 93 and 94, there are multiplayer modes, but how many people took advantage of that? Not as many, not nearly as many as would have if they had put another port on the damn thing.
You can play with your friends, but you got to pay for it.
Right. You got to go get your turbo tab, dude. And Sega Saturn did something, pretty wild. I think they had up to 10 players on their Bomberman version.
It was crazy.
That one, I feel like you reach a point of diminishing returns on that, though, to where it just gets impossible to track what's going on.
Right.
And I'm just like, So I'm not a huge fan of the Saturn version. Like it's cool, and I love the idea of murdering that many of your friends, right? But like it just doesn't. I think 5 is that nice sweet spot, like where it should be. But that's just my take on it.
I think you're probably right. If once you're shrinking the screen, I think you like you said, it's diminishing returns at that point.
Yeah.
Because especially back then, because not everybody, people don't have 65, 75-inch TVs back then like they do now. They had 13, 14, 15-inch.
You were lucky if you knew somebody with a 32.
Yeah, like a floor model or something from 1972.
Right.
Sorry, what's your experience with Bomberman? I know you're a fan of it to some extent, right?
Well, what's funny? When I first saw Bomberman on the NES, I was like, man, this cover looks cool. This game is going to be awesome. And then, I boot the game up. I'm like, man, this game is ass. And I didn't really get into it. I didn't understand
Were you playing that first
the concept of the game.
It was the friends you made along the way.
Right. But when I got it so again, my first experience with Bomberman on the Turbo was the 3-in-1 disc. I didn't have like the HuCard. I had the 3-in-1 disc, and then my 2 friends, or the 2 suckers that I convinced to get Turbo Duos, they were my Turbo friends. We all had Bomberman on the same disc because I had the TurboGrafx CD and I had bought the Super CD with the 3-in-1 disc comes with the Super CD card back then. But they had Turbo Duos, so they had that same disc I had packed in. And so, we all started playing Bomberman. I'm like, man, this game is so incredibly competitive. And so we would get together and just play, 3-player Bomberman all the time, sometimes 4. I never actually had the experience of playing 5-player Bomberman back in the day. Like I did later on, but during its heyday, I never got to play a 5-player game.
I was lucky in the like early 2000s that I had that many friends to begin with, right? Like it just doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, well, back then, like nobody had turbos. Like I said, I had my 2 friends that I suckered into getting one, and I say suckered in. One of them really like he jumped right in, but my other friend, who I still talk to on Instagram, he was like, "Man, you know what's one thing I regret doing is selling all my Sega stuff to get a Turbo Duo with you guys." And so, like, you know, but we all used to get together and play Bomberman and have a lot of fun. And then I got this book, the capsule number 4, came with a demo of Bomberman 94 on it. And we played the shit out of this demo because it came with, you know, like the little kangaroos and whatever. There was no actual like story mode game in this version. It was just the versus mode. And that was enough for us because we would just, you know, play for hours, you know. And I loved the little green kangaroo because that guy would just like zip around.
Oh yeah,
Man,
you would ride him.
So much fun. Yeah, you would ride them. And there was one that like kicked the bombs, you know, there was one of them who could jump over blocks. So we played hours on that stupid little demo that came in that book. Hours.
That's
you know?
neat.
And 2 of us had that book back then too.
I didn't know that had just like a pared down just versus mode version of it. That's cool.
Yeah, and then Hudson actually repackaged that with Kabuki, and all they did is repackage the same demo that's in this book, but they put Kabuki Danjiro, who is their like main Tengai Makyo RPG series, the Kabuki guy with the blue hair. You know who I'm talking about? Very iconic. Ian, I think.
Another picture, yeah.
Yeah. So they made a Bomberman with just that character because he was so popular with Hudson at the time that they just made a Bomberman with just all the Bombermans, instead of being Bombermans, are just different colored Kabukis. And they gave that out as a promotion because at the time they were gearing to release Tengai Makyo, the 3rd Tengai Makyo game on the PC Engine, with him as the star of the character. And so I didn't get that till much later, but it's basically Bomberman 94. So I would have to say Bomberman 94 is my absolute favorite.
Me too.
Bomberman on the PC Engine.
That's like the equivalent of, you know, what I was saying about Bonk's Revenge, kind of. I feel like it's just like the perfect amalgamation of all the Bomberman ideas. And, you know, Bomberman took a lot of different forms over the years. That Bomberman Hero on the N64 is pretty good. Totally different type of game. It's actually my wife's favorite game of all time, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she loves
it. It's one of the
few
N64 games I'll play. I'm not a fan of the N64, but the few games that I do like are like the Hudson ones and then like, you know, a couple action ones.
Well, to her, the N64 is like the Turbo is to me. You know, it's like she was a little kid when she was playing it.
Right.
You know, so there's that.
So she's got that nostalgia.
Absolutely. I mean, it could be dog water and she'd be like, oh, this is so fun, you know, because of the nostalgia. So, yeah. But that's just how it goes. And, you know, nowadays, Bomberman, there's, they did one on the PS3, I want to say, maybe 4, called Bomberman Ultra.
They did on the 360. Yeah, there was
the 360. Yeah. So weird.
And it was just multiplayer stuff. There was no campaign, but it was fully featured. I mean, there were all kinds of new power-ups. There were power downs that you could turn on and off that would like make you worse. And there was online mode. And I played that a lot. I remember
I remember I worked in video stores back at that point in time. You know, it's an old sentence now, but back then it was like there was a whole ad campaign. Oh my, campaign.
There was
that blitzed around that, like, and like video stores had like hanging banners, all kinds of stuff for Bomberman. And I'm like, really, this guy's coming back? And it was just a really interesting time.
Yeah,
it flopped though.
They did Bomberman R. I guess that's what they're doing now. Bomberman R and Bomberman R2. I guess those are the two big Bomberman games now. I haven't played either one.
Yeah, Konami made one with like anime titty girls too at some point.
Well, I'm sure that'll sell plenty of copies.
It was like arcade.
Booberman.
Might as well. That's like the one thing that series hasn't done yet. Might as well.
Yeah.
And another thing that I really like, it's not in the Bomberman universe, of course, but I do want to mention a little shout out to the level in Star Parodius, where you can play like a flying Bomberman in that game also, but there's a level that's just like these grid levels from Bomberman,
Yep.
and it's so fun. It's so fun to play. I have a save state of that moment here on my PC with, a ROM that I dumped from my own disk, so it's all good. But
Your own copy,
yeah, it's a backup, bro. And
even the music does a little tribute to Bomberman in that stage,
the whole,
which I love.
If you like Hudson, you have to play Star Parodius. I really should have probably put that on this list. I didn't, but that's just such a what a fun little game.
Fun. It's an easy game, but like it's my Star Parodier has to be my favorite overhead shooter on the PC Engine.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it's just so colorful and fun and easy to play. Like you can get through that game fairly easy.
Yeah, it just puts a smile on your face. I mean, it's just
and you can be a PC Engine. Like, what game can you fly around as a PC Engine?
And like shoot CDs. It's like it's
CDs and HuCards.
It's so funny.
It gets the Tennokoe bank, as when you shoot the missiles, the memory bank in its butt. It's awesome.
It's almost kind of like how Astrobot on the PS5 is like this celebration of all these different IP. It's like a kind of a miniature version of that sort of thing. I don't know if you guys have played Astrobot, but
no, I haven't played it.
You probably like it, Sorry.
Robot's cute though.
Ian, I think you probably would too, but I'm almost positive, Sorry, you would like it.
I don't have a PS5. Otherwise, that would have been something I would have been interested in if I had one.
Yeah, well, maybe one day you'll end up with one. That's not my favorite PlayStation console, I have to say. But
yeah, once they redesign it, maybe.
It is weird looking, I gotta say. I'm still not used to it. It looks
Yu-Gi-Oh jacket.
I don't even know what.
Yeah, the Yu-Gi, right? Yeah, it does. It looks like so there's a character named
Blue Eyes, Blue Dragon.
Yeah, that guy, Seito Kaiba, and he's got like a jacket that like comes up. So they say that the PS5 looks like him. It's so funny because like they took like just his head in like the memes and just put it on top of the PS5.
Yeah, look, it fits perfect.
Dude, it's hilarious.
I don't know who designed that and who signed off on the fact that got through.
God, it's so
many people. It's just it's a nightmare. I don't know.
And like, where do you put it on? Like anywhere, like where do you put it? Like I don't know where I would even put it. I don't have like it's not flat. Like the PS4 was so easy. You just put it under a thing and it's like slides right in. It's flat.
God forbid.
What's funny is like how I don't know. It's kind of like when you had the PlayStation 1, which was a very hi-fi piece of electronics looking design. Then the PS2, which was a very blocky design. Then the PS3, which was that interesting rounded type design, and then they kind of overcompensated back to the stealth profile of like low radar signature of the PS4 in terms of the angles. And then the PS5, I don't know what inspiration they were taking for that one, but they just like, you know what? 1960s car sounds great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's either that or it looks like a building in like Kuala Lumpur or something.
Oh yeah, like some like
some
Southeast Asian
high rise. Yeah, some Southeast Asian high rise.
Singapore. All right, I like that. Yeah.
I saw somewhere someone described the PS5 as a melted stormtrooper, and
I could see it.
That always stuck with me. It's like, yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's a melt. You took a stormtrooper and you melted him like 99% of the way, and that's what it is.
I think subconsciously when I first saw the PS5, I'm like, man, it looks like Kaiba. Like from Yu-Gi-Oh! Was like my first thought.
So much. For me, it was a router. It always looked like a router to me.
Yeah, there's that element. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
totally
that's the sad part about modern consoles. I feel like they're pretty uninspired in terms of design.
They really are.
I think the problem is that they were trying to look like they were really inspired to do something, and it just failed at the design.
They're just trying too hard. You just like look at the Xbox consoles. They're unremarkable, but they're fine.
I prefer them that way. Don't be remarkable. Be easy to put in my entertainment center.
Yeah. I mean, it's called an Xbox, so they tend to stick to that design inspiration pretty closely.
Yeah,
and it works. It works.
Yeah,
you can put it on the side of your entertainment center. If it doesn't fit, it works. It's easy.
Yeah, you have
a stupid design.
If you have a PS5 in your room, that becomes a PS5 room. It dominates the space.
It's his room.
Yeah,
no one. Everything else is just there.
Just crooked inside the slot where the VCR would go because it's the only place it'll fit.
Right. Lopsided.
It's just in there diagonally.
Just wedged.
It's a disaster. Anyway, Dungeon Explorer.
God, that cover.
This is, in my opinion, maybe the worst. I remember drawing stuff when I was a kid, and that woman in the blue dress there, and the warlock to the left, I drew stuff that looked like that when I was literally not trying. And I don't, because I know, there's style and there's different reasons why things look different, This is just I feel like this is just kind of a bad job. It's just a bad job. I hate to say it, but it's just a bad job. Now, that's the only bad thing about Dungeon Explorer, though. Everything. I mean, this is an amazing game. I love this game. This is one of my favorites. In fact, I think I like Dungeon Explorer 2 maybe a little bit more. But they're both great. And yeah, I love this game. Have you guys played this one, Ian? What's your experience with?
I really haven't played it. Like I've touched it a couple of times, and my initial takeaway was Gauntlet with RPG elements put in there, which was kind of cool. But I never really had enough time to fully explore it, so I can't give you a really good answer on it, unfortunately.
I would say Gauntlet plus like your standard dungeon crawler of the time. There's an overworld, and that overworld leads you to different dungeons with bosses, and then you hightail it out of there and you go to the next one. And you talk to people along the way like you would in Zelda or whatever. But yeah, on paper, not super remarkable, but I think just in execution, it's just one of those games. It's just like it executed beautifully.
Yeah, and I think one of my major takeaways, at least when I was doing my research on turbografx content, was exploring like as to why their cover art was so weird. And some of it apparently had to do with like they would get the game and then they would have zero other content associated with it. They wouldn't even have the Japanese cover. They would just have the game and know the title. Mm-hmm. And they would have zero, and so they just have to come up with their own title. So they would like take it home. And so people would be like ask their kids to come up with a design idea for a title.
That
like,
explains everything.
Because these were just like corporate. Well, I mean, like, and even like later in terms of like games that they wanted to port over to the TG16. Like these were just boardroom people that worked at NEC who had made VCRs their entire life, so they had no like inspiration for the game industry, and so they'd have their kids kind of like, hey, which one of these games you like better? They're like, oh, I like this one, and they're like, okay, we'll go with that one, and they would go to the boardroom meeting, like my kids like this one, so they would just go with that. And it just, but this like whole thing kind of happened in terms of, especially you got that with like the classic Mega Man cover art that was so awful.
Oh,
it was like apparently they got that at a boardroom, like, hey, you guys need to make a cover for this game, and they're like, how long do we have? They're like, tomorrow. And so like things like that would happen in terms of like these things. So NEC was certainly not immune from like just robbing people of proper time in developing these covers.
No.
And I don't know if it was like hubris or they thought they needed to do it better, but like even the TG16 console design has to do with like, we're American, damn it, we can do it better, Like
needs to be better.
I'm like, it's okay to copy other people's homework, man. Nobody's gonna grade you on it. Like it's like it had a different mentality back then.
Now there's some turbo covers that I do prefer, which hopefully I've because I'll do community posts on my channel sometimes and showing the Japanese cover and American cover, and about half the time it's a poll, and have people vote.
Yeah.
And about half the time, the American one wins. So I think
that'd be a great little podcast for you to do. Go over.
That'd be fun.
He did talk about it on our last one. He was mentioning Bonk as the example for it. I was kind of curious what your other examples were, but his main example on the podcast we did last week was that the Bonk games looked better. The U.S. covers for the Bonk games look better than the Japanese ones.
I think so.
Because the Japanese ones were like kind of simple and cartoonish, and
they were just insane. They was just like it was too much, which probably made sense maybe for that market. But from my eyes, the PC Genjin cover arts are a disaster. I can't discern.
I think
what I'm
they were trying to go for like a paper mache look or something. They were trying to make it look like the design was made like out of like construction paper or paper mache or like arts and crafts, because that screams prehistoric times. I don't know. I don't know what reason they went for it, but that's what they were trying to go for. I think it was like a arts and crafts thing, maybe to attract kids, probably.
I guess. But I respect the attempt. I mean, it's a creative attempt at something, so I always respect that to some extent. But yeah, the Western covers, at least in Bonk, did better. Not the case with Dungeon Explorer, unfortunately.
Or Bomberman, for that matter.
Yeah, the Bomberman one's weird. JJ and Jeff one's kind of weird. It's like these realistic people with just giant heads, like kicking a trash can.
But Keith Courage is another weird one too.
I know they had like this grown ass man, and
yeah,
like,
looks like
that doesn't look like the game at all.
You play the game, and it's like this little kid.
Oh man, it was wild, and they did their best, I guess, with what they had. But thankfully, the game is amazing. Dungeon Explorer. Saru, talk about your history with Dungeon Explorer a little bit. I'm sure that
I've never beat either one of the Dungeon Explorers, though. I do have them, and I did put in a good amount of time. My issue is I could never find anyone to play those games with me.
Mm-hmm.
I've never played a multiplayer game of Dungeon Explorer. I guess I could do at least a 2-player game now, but like back in the day, I would have loved to have had friends to play.
Yeah, me too.
One of the Dungeon Explorer games, because like at that time, none of us had it. Like during the heyday of it, I didn't have it. My Turbo friends didn't have it, so like I never got to play it with friends.
Turbo friends.
Yeah, with my Turbo friends. That's
that.
But because it was just a game that, if you had money, that's not the game you were going to go buy, right? You were going to go buy your Air Zonk or, whatever other, R-Type. And then, like, the arcade card just became a thing. So, like, 2 of us had arcade carts. So, like, I had bought Fatal Fury 2. My friend bought Fatal Fury Special. And I was super jealous of that. So jealous. But, so I never got to play Dungeon Explorer multiplayer. And I would love to someday. Get a group of people, and just play a few sessions of it till we beat it or something. I don't know.
It definitely would be
fun.
It feels designed for multiplayer, although I will say it's totally worth playing on your own if that's just...
Yeah, you can play it alone, and the music is excellent.
It's
in
excellent.
Both of them. The chiptunes are great. The CD one has like cool ass cutscenes with excellent CDDA tracks that are just awesome. Yeah.
Yep.
You can totally play it one player, but I want that experience.
Yeah, I hear you. I had it one time. I had that experience one time. I think I was working at GameStop, and I was friends with everyone else that worked there, and we would all, sometimes we'd go to different, my house or their houses. We'd each go to, one of the people that work there's houses and get drunk and play video games, and usually it was Rock Band or something like that. But one time when everyone came to my house, I fired up Dungeon Explorer. I had the controllers. I had the turbo tap. I was like, let's play this. And so we didn't get like hammered, but we got, like 8 out of 10 drunk, like pretty drunk, and played Dungeon Explorer for about, an hour and a half or so. We got, I think, 2 dungeons deep, and just had a blast. It was definitely, that's what the game is for sure. But if you're not able to have that experience, I still highly recommend playing the game on your own, just if for nothing else. Just, see the first dungeon or 2 and experience some of that music. I would argue the music in this game, probably top 5, like in the whole system. It's got to be in the top 5.
It's got some great chiptune compositions, and Dungeon Explorer 2 has some really awesome arranged music.
Yep.
Like, I think the music in both of them is great.
Yeah, 2 has some of the same tunes. They have unique tunes as well, but they have some of the same ones that they kind of like redid with, I guess MIDI instruments.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. It's interesting. I think I still kind of have a soft spot for the first one slightly, but they're both good. Both good. Far above average.
Did you ever play the Sega CD one? The Dungeon Explorer on Sega CD?
No, I haven't. Is it
It's weird.
It's like it's a way different type of game though, right?
No, it's the same kind of game. It's just I don't know. It's like it doesn't flow that great. Like the graphics look like they could be better, but they're not, because I think like the frame rate is lesser than that of Dungeon Explorer 2.
Okay.
On the turbografx. So, but it's weird. And like when you beat it, it says something about like Dungeon Explorer 3 or something in the credits, if I remember correctly. So it was like, I don't know if they were trying to market that as like Dungeon Explorer 3 and then just decided to call it Dungeon Explorer. But there were a few Dungeon Explorer games actually. There was like the Super Famicom one was, what was it called? Like Dungeon Explorer Jelly Beans or something. Some weird
remember
name.
that one. I played one on the PSP though at one point, and that was kind of interesting.
Something with beans. Yeah, the PSP one had one too. I never played that one. Actually.
It was okay. I didn't get real far. I didn't like it as much, but I mean, it was.
Did they do like 3D? Was it all like?
Yep. It was early 3D sort of looking.
Yeah.
Early. That PSP kind of look, like in between PS1 and 2 kind of look, which I think was okay for that game, but I prefer the 2D sprites ultimately.
Was it like overhead or was it isometric? I'm really curious about that one.
I believe it was overhead. It might have been slightly tilted, like kind of an isometric vibe, but I think it felt a lot like the original in terms of just the way it felt to play. But presentation wise,
the only reason I ask is because like a lot of games back during that time were trying to go for like that Diablo look. It was like a popular thing. So I was wondering if it was like isometric or not.
I never thought about it in terms of like trying to be like a Diablo style game, but it may have had a little bit of that in it actually. Now that you mention that, yeah, that would make sense. But in any case, 1 and 2, highly recommend both of them. They flow real well. If you're not paying attention like at all, you can get turned around and lost. But if you're just kind of like casually paying attention to what you're doing, it flows very well, from one dungeon to the next. Very great game. Love it. Lords of Thunder.
I never played this one. Gotta be honest.
You are lying. You haven't played Lords of Thunder?
No, I haven't, and I feel like a piece of shit.
Ian. Your life is gonna change, dude. You have to play this. Sorry, tell him why he needs to play this.
Dude, the music alone, man, like it's got this like heavy metal kind of like vibe going for it, and like the whole game itself, just the aesthetic, it's just got like this medieval thing going for it, and it's got an awesome power-up system. The game is fun. Like there are points in the game where that do get really hard, but man, the game is so much fun. The music alone, like we talked about this, how this is one of the games that you can just play, outside of the game itself, right? Like you can pop that. I used to pop it in my CD player all the time, and I would just, lay in bed and sleep to this kind of thing, even though, the music is like very rock heavy. It's totally awesome.
Well, unfortunately for me, like because I adopted the turbografx later, like I still don't have a CD unit for it. So a lot of the CD titles I haven't played too much of outside emulation. So there's that downside.
I think
you gotta play it.
Ian, I think you're a perfect candidate to go ahead, and I know it kind of stings, but I think you're a perfect candidate to get one of those EverDrive Pros. You should just get it. Just take the plunge. And once you do it, you're done. It stings, but once you get it, you're done. That's it. And
put all your CD stuff, and you can play it off your turbo.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like, and the sad thing for me, like as a retro collector, like I haven't invested too heavily in EverDrive stuff because I'm like, well, if I get that, then I'll lose my interest in finding things. But I'm like, I'm not gonna find turbografx stuff in a while.
I mean, you don't have a CD attachment anyway, so
yeah, I don't have it.
Yeah,
I figured maybe if I had a CD game, like the universe would provide me with
yeah.
That'll force you to get one.
It would force the universe to provide me with one, right? Like that.
The inertia. There's an inertia to it that would kind of work in your favor there. But I mean, I got the EverDrive Pro and I still buy shit. I just bought Hatris, the PC Engine game that's basically Tetris with hats. And I'm gonna put that in the weird games video, sorry, that me and you are gonna do.
Oh, are you? Oh, okay.
I think if I'm ever going to talk about it, it needs to be there, I think. I don't think it'll ever fit anywhere else, And it's just
true.
It's just
and it's weird.
It's just so stupid. It's mostly stupid, but it's weird too, I guess.
It's not like a good weird, but I think it'd be interesting to talk about.
Yeah. Anyway, Lords of Thunder this is another one of those where it's like you just have to play it, and I'm shocked you haven't played it. I'm a little disappointed, to be honest with you. A little disappointed.
I know, and I was really worried about coming on here and be like, oh god, they're gonna find out I'm a fraud.
Yeah, definitely exposed. That's all right though. We'll get you.
Stamp that over my camera.
Now you have homework. That's your homework.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I got to study.
Well, you got us to help you through it. We'll get you over the finish line. Don't worry. All right.
Yeah. Pick the Earth Armor.
I have an analog pocket that I think I could probably play this on.
Oh yeah. Dude, Analog Pocket is great for PC Engine stuff. It runs awesome. The Analog Pocket runs PC Engine better than the Analog Duo. So I feel like
really
someone messed up somewhere. Yeah, I feel like there are some games run better on the Analog Pocket than they do on the Analog Duo, which
interesting.
Is like how I thought it was like the same core, but I don't know. I guess not.
I gotta say, man, the Duo, the Analog Duo now is great. when it launched, I don't know if you watched my review, I tried my best to like not unnecessarily be unnecessarily critical of them, but the sound was fucked. I mean,
dude, the sound was fucked. The not the emulation, but like some of the games didn't replicate well for some reason.
half the features didn't
I
work.
made a whole video about it and I never put it out because I'm like, man, I'm just shitting like on this console, like head on. So I never put it out. So I have this video that I made, and I'm watching it back and I'm like, man, I am just constantly shitting on this thing, and like I don't want to do that. So I'm like, I'm gonna hold off and see if it gets better. And thankfully it did get better.
It's fine now.
But maybe it's something I can talk about when I finally do make that video and be like, look, I was gonna make a video when I first got it. You know, I did unboxing everything and was like, I just started shitting on it. I'm like, man, I'm not gonna put this out because this is gonna make me seem bitchy and negative. So I never did.
Yep, I've done that with a couple.
I think it's in a better place now. It still has some problems, but like I think only people like me will notice them.
Right.
I think the average consumer is not even gonna know.
But the thing is, it's not for the average consumer. It's for us. That's the problem.
That's true. But I mean, like, there's a lot of people who are happy to just see. I play a lot of actual like PC Engine stuff too. And so I ran into a lot of games that ran into problems. And so I think like even just the turbo heads might not run into those issues because most of the games that were made on the turbo run just fine. And I think that's who they're keeping in mind too. They're not, banking on the guy that's trying to play, his titty mahjong or, Popful Mail or whatever and then have it crash.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah.
But it's in a better place now for sure.
It's acceptable for the price now. It was not at launch, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But you get it. It's still going to be like that. You got to update the firmware, which not everybody's going to know how to do. But anyway, a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
Newtopia is an interesting game because this was, to me, I actually played this before I played any Zelda game. So for me, I played Zelda and I was like, oh, it's like Newtopia kind of. That was my, that's how that unfolded for me. I know I'm in a small minority on that, but very, very well done Zelda type game here. Again, Hudson Soft, outstanding music, great graphics. The only thing that kind of limited the gameplay for me, you guys might disagree, but the four-way directional
diagonal movement. Yeah.
I didn't like
the first one didn't have any diagonal movement. So yeah, it's kind of,
right.
But I mean, so it was basically trying to be like the original Zelda, even down to that point.
Right, to a fault almost,
No diagonal movement.
Ian, have you played this one?
I have. The funny thing about this one is I actually didn't play it till way later because I saw the cover art and just assumed it was going to be some other shitty game. Like, just looking at, like, I saw this and I'm like, I'm not interested in that. Because, like, I figured it would be like, God, I'm thinking like
it's funny because this is one of the better covers.
Well, I mean, like, but in terms of like what it's selling, I'm like, what the hell is it selling me right now? In terms of like, I figured it would be like either Advanced Dungeons and Dragons or one of those like first-person kind of adventure titles that are on the TurboGrafx.
It's like dungeon crawler.
Yeah, so I figured it would be like that. So I guess, and also like role playing, right? So I ignored it because the cover art, I'm like, I don't know what this is. It's probably going to be some other weird title that I'm just not into. And then, like, I checked it out later on my Pi, and I'm like, oh shit, this is like Zelda. I'm like, damn it. Could have gotten this. And, like, completely, like, I do not own a physical version of this game, and I'm kind of pissed about it, despite having had the opportunity.
Yeah. Yep. I don't either. Don't feel bad. Yeah. I don't have. Well, I have the Japanese ones, but, like, would have been nice to get them in English. But me, just like you, I pretty much avoided this game as well. Mm-hmm. The cover doesn't really sell what the game is about.
And for me, being a later kind of blooming person for the TurboGrafx, I had played like in television games which had similar cover art to this, where I'm like, hard pass because those games are really bad. And so like
trauma.
Yeah, so that was my kind of deterrent. I'm like, I don't really want to play that because it reminds me too much of like whatever that was, like whatever that Fire Emblem or whatever it was on the. So there's a random game on the television that has fire in the title and it's just bad, like Fire Ember or something.
I would not know. DJ Game Studios would probably know what that is. He's a big Intellivision guy.
Some title with fire, but it has like a dragon on the cover, and it just brought painful memories of that back.
Well, it's not a great. Yeah, I mean, in terms of illustrating what the game's about, it's definitely not a great cover. I do think, like in a vacuum, it's one of the better TurboGrafx covers, though. Like just in terms of being a good piece of art.
As far as art, yeah, it's got that going for it. Like in terms of somebody actually knew how to draw when they were doing this.
Yeah. It's competent. The bar's low. We have to,
Yeah, truly.
Thanks, Dungeon Explorer.
We're like, oh, this one doesn't suck, so it's one of the better ones. Yeah. I like how the plume of his helmet kind of goes over the border of the square a little bit. It's kind of neat.
Yeah, that's a great design choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like I said, it doesn't really tell you'd think it could just as easily be for, Double Dungeons or, any other game. Could be Dungeon Explorer. But yeah, and I don't the more accurate cover, I guess you'd be fighting like a jelly blob or whatever, because you fight those for like the first a third of the game, damn near.
Yeah.
But I like the game. The dungeons are kind of small. They're kind of short. The bosses are kind of simple. But, I mean, if you like those kind of top-down Zelda-style games, I mean, it's extremely close in terms of quality. It arguably matches Zelda in terms of quality. Maybe not as good of a game overall as the original couple of Zeldas, but close enough. I think if you like those games, you'd like this one. And the second one fixed some things. The second one I think is better, like with a lot of these games. You got the diagonal movement, diagonal attacks, which was huge for me. That's why I really don't even play this one much. If I'm in the mood for Newtopia, I played the second one, generally. But yeah, cool game. And definitely, characterizes Hudson Soft in terms of, music and everything. And just high-quality graphics and music. So, Ian, here's your favorite game of all time.
Yeah. Man, like Military Madness, man. Like I played this game a lot on stream, and it's one of those titles. It's easy to play, hard to master.
Yeah,
and just painfully unforgiving if you mess up. And I've always been a man. I haven't beaten it yet, but I played it a bunch of times on stream. But like, never don't have a good time.
Yeah, it's I like the first few levels. They do give you some time, I feel, to get the hang of it. Maybe not enough time for someone like me who really doesn't play strategy games, but I feel like the on-ramp is smooth enough to where people who don't play strategy games can get some enjoyment out of this before they start, hitting a brick wall with some of the later levels. And I appreciate that about it. It's very approachable, but like you said, it's, there's very hard to master still.
Oh yeah, like the first couple levels like really teach you what you're doing, and then you pretty much have to think very hard about how you're playing the game later. So it gets very unfair, probably around level 3, level 4, where it just beats the hell out of you. But yeah. Oh, but the game I was talking about in television was Dragonfire. That's the one I was...
Dragonfire, okay.
Yeah,
I don't know. Good
just
to know.
Unforgiving one. But, yeah, but this one's great. But yeah, Military Madness was kind of great in terms of... I'm trying to think of... on the Genesis, there were some other really fun turn-based strategy games, kind of like this one, and this game kind of has that pre-Advanced Wars kind of take on it with... You gotta pay attention to terrain, topography, all that. So the gameplay's always pretty interesting in terms of you have to be smart, you have to know how to bait the computer to do things. It's always a good time. Like I could see this one being really, really fun for like mobile gamers who had the Turbo Express or whatever. It's being pretty big back then.
Yeah, this is a perfect Turbo Express game for sure. Yeah, especially now. If you can put your EverDrive Pro in your Turbo Express, save. And then get back
this game would be hard to see though in your Turbo Express.
It would be kind of small, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, some games are better on that than others, but I think just in terms of like the ability to kind of play this for a little bit and walk away and come back, like I think that, like Ian said, I think kind of makes it a good like candidate for a mobile experience. Ian, they did a PS1 re-release of this. Did you ever play that?
No, I didn't know about that, actually. That sounds pretty great.
It's really similar. You should definitely check into it. It's just, they switched over to sort of polygonal graphics, which
was a PlayStation 1?
PlayStation 1, yep. And it was from Hudson. And from what I can tell, I only kind of dabbled in it a couple of times, but from what I can tell, it plays very similarly. It's basically the same thing. Just kind of.
Oh, that looks sick. Okay.
Yeah, try it out at some point. I'd like to know what you think of it.
Yeah, I never knew there was a PS1 version.
$70.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if it's worth quite that.
Looks like 22 on eBay. Like, no, that's 7. I don't know. We'll see. I'll try to find out. That sounds pretty great.
Yeah.
But yeah, this one I've always been drawn to it, and ironically, there's one level that has insanely similar topography to Fort Irwin, California, where we do like the National Training Center giant force-on-force Army training event that most units have to do before they're certified to deploy. But like basically a really similar topography and map area, and I thought that was really funny. I'm like, did they plan that, or is it just unintentional? Or just coincidental, I mean.
I'm sure it was, right? It's got to be coincidental.
Probably. I can't imagine anybody who made Military Madness was, associated with the U.S. military, but I thought it was really funny that one of the maps is like spot on for Fort Irwin, California.
I guess I could see that with the topography style there. But it's a neat.
Because I was like, it was just funny because like when I played that map before, I'm like, oh, cool, I died right here when we got overran at the command post. I was like, just funny things like that in terms of just looking at that map and having flashbacks.
Yeah,
that's kind of cool though.
The key is to, especially later on, like around level 4, the key really, you have to learn how to manipulate the computer. You have to, like, and at that point, it's, to me, at least with the way I like to play games, like that almost kind of breaks the experience a little bit for me, because I don't want to feel like I'm tricking the game. You know what I mean? I want to feel like I'm mastering the game, which is a fine line between the two things, and it's very subjective. But for me, it kind of falls. Yeah, I kind of lose interest around that point, even though it is.
Fair.
I've played beyond that point. I've played it extensively, but I feel like once I feel it kind of reminds me of like old PS. Like I'll go back to like Siphon Filter, good example, where like you could do stealth, but you're really only just shooting guys because they just rendered at the edge of the game and they don't see you yet. You know what I mean? And they call it a stealth. You know, they call that stealth. That's really not stealth. I'm outsmarting the game, you know? And it's not as satisfying as like say in Metal Gear Solid, where you actually plant a claymore mine and, you know, you actually are using stealth and you're not. Yeah. So anyway, it's kind of like that dynamic where it's like, it's not as engaging to me past that point. But again, you know, you have the high production values of Hudson Soft, great music. It's a 2-player game, you know, another one of those games you can get a second person in on. And yeah, I like it. If this is not my genre by any means, but this is one of the few games in this genre that, you know, I do play every once in a blue moon.
This is the first game in that genre that I played, actually.
I think me too,
I've never touched a strategy game ever until Military Madness. This was my first. And then at first, I hated it. But I had a friend named Jay who would play this all the time, and I would just watch. I mean, God, this game is so fucking boring. But then, like, he'd keep playing it, and then I'm like, oh, I get it, you know?
Oh,
and it's like, yeah. And then, like, once I understood the concept of it, I was like, oh, shit, I think I like strategy games now. So I started, you know, playing it. And once you start getting to, like, level 3 or 4, right, is where it becomes to where, like, yeah, like it ramps up like hella, and you really have to think about your resources, you know, at that point of the game. But like up until that game, that point, it's pretty fun, and I loved it.
And something I always like Military Madness, it plays with that mechanic where whenever the match starts, that's the units you're going to have till the end of the match. Like there isn't any reinforcements. You have to be smart with the units you go into battle with. So the equation to solve it, you have to figure it out. Like in terms of what units you have based on the rock paper scissors, in terms of what units are best against others. Always great little internal management things you have to do. So it just keeps you thinking about it.
Yeah, but for the type of game that it is, it's pretty fun.
Yeah, it's universally fun, at least to a point, for sure. There's a little bit of.
I feel like I wouldn't have gotten into other strategy games if it wasn't for this game, for sure.
Yeah, I would say so. I'm still not a big fan of the genre generally.
PC Engine has a lot of them, actually. There's quite a bit of them.
Yeah, and then, you know, there was a lot on the PS1, and, you know, the genre now is a huge thing for people that like that kind of thing. There's so many incredibly deep strategy games that I'll never, ever come anywhere near. Not because I don't like them, but my brain does not work that way. We got one more.
Never played this one.
You're kidding.
No, I'm a basic bitch.
Really?
Sorry.
Wow. Okay. Ian, you got some work to do, my friend.
More homework.
I know. I got some homework. Yeah.
Arizonk and Koryun, because they're like
Yeah, they're sort of brothers.
Two games that are very, they are. They're.
I'm gonna use the
super
restroom really quick. I'll be
related.
right back. I apologize.
Okay. Well, he hasn't played it anyway, so we'll just go.
Okay.
Yeah. So, tell me, we talked a little bit about this. We don't need to go like, as deep as we went on the last one, but I did want to mention Air Zonk simply because, this was Hudson Soft really trying. This is their last big hurrah of like trying to be cool in the West. That's what it felt like to me anyway. It was, especially with this image, this obvious Terminator 2, like,
right. Yeah.
kind of, invoking the same vibe. And it didn't work, obviously, but it still got a great game out of it. I don't really like the second Air Zonk nearly as much. But
no, it's like a different team that worked on it, and so like
and you can
the
tell
vibe is different. Like the vibe is totally different because like this one was worked on by that one guy from Naxat who also worked on Koryun, Yoshihara Takaoka, I think was his name.
Okay,
he worked on this as well as Koryun. I mean, it's his engine. Like he made the engine that this game runs on, as well as Koryun. That's why Koryun and this game are so similar, is because they're basically the same like base game. You know what's funny though? I only recently got my copy. I bought this from my buddy Hero.
Oh, nice.
Who is part of our like Patreon, and he was like, "Oh, I got an extra one." And I was like, "I'll take it, man," because I don't actually have it, which is a crime against humanity. Because I love the game, because I love PC Denji and Air Zonk. Love this game. Because I love Koryun, and I just never owned a copy. I'm like, why don't I own a copy of this? So I was like, fuck it, I'll pick it up.
Oh, that's a great one to own. Yeah, that's a great one to own. I have mine.
I don't have the second one though because it's expensive, and I also don't want it.
Yeah, that's the main thing. It's like it's not very good. I hate to say it.
Yeah, I don't want to pay over $100 for a game I'm just not going to play.
Right. It's shelf candy is valuable up to a point, but
right, yep, up to a point. Once you're paying in the hundreds for the game, it's like
no, thank you.
Good.
But I would argue Air Zonk is worth a pretty penny. Whatever that means to you. People have different interpretations of what a high price is. But for me, like
the game does fetch well over $100. Even the Japanese one does.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it does.
Yep.
If I didn't have my childhood copy of it, which I do, thankfully, I would gladly fork over $100 or so to get a copy, even if it's just the HuCard. I would have, gladly done that by now. But thankfully,
that's one I would have loved to have gotten back then.
Yeah,
I would have loved to have had this one back in the day.
It was one of those ones that I think didn't have a jewel case. I think it was one of the ones.
It didn't.
Yeah, it was in the plastic tray.
It was the later ones that had those plastic trays. My Jackie Chan came like that. Came in a plastic tray like that. My Shockman did too, actually. Both Shockman and Jackie Chan came in one of those plastic trays.
I think my Shockman did too. I don't, because I've gotten
they didn't come with a jewel case.
I got some repro cases because I don't ever intend on selling mine, so I just want them to look nice and psychologically satisfying to me. I don't really care what anyone else thinks. So I got like some repro cases for some of the ones that came in trays, and I don't remember which is which anymore.
Well, those those are fine because they didn't actually come in trays. So like I prefer putting them in trays myself too. So
so
can't fault you there.
Yeah, and every song. This is another one of those where it's like top 5 music in the whole system. I would argue.
Oh yeah, some great chiptunes.
Every single song is a 10 out of 10. There's not a weak moment, in let alone the soundtrack, but the whole game really. The only flaw I would say is the last level is too much. The last level is like it's a whole ass level, and then a whole boss rush, and
the boss rush. Yep.
And then the final boss that you fight like 3 times. It's too much, man.
That's pretty much taken from Koryun, that whole segment. They do the same exact thing in Koryun, yep. That whole boss rush. And then the last boss being like 3 phases. It's super similar.
I've never beat Koryun. I just realized that. I should do that.
It's easier. I feel like it's easier than Air Zonk. I think Air Zonk is a little bit... They're both kind of easy. Not easy games, but I mean
easy-ish.
They're not like super hard shoot 'em ups, but I think Air Zonk is just slightly harder than Koryun.
Right.
But yeah, definitely play Koryun. If you love Air Zonk, playing through Koryun will be a delight.
There's definitely several levels. I've played a good chunk of it. I mean, there's definitely levels that remind me of Air levels for sure, and just the gameplay and this tone of it. I mean, it's obvious. It's obvious it's made like by the same guy.
Yeah.
Which
the
is
music
a great
is
sign.
better in Air for sure, but like Koryun has some decent themes in it as well. But Air definitely wins in the music department.
Yeah, Air just has that Hudson polish to it. You know that that Koryun, while it's still an amazing game, just doesn't quite reach that level.
The level of quality, yeah, I agree.
just like a quality level.
Just ever so slightly, you know, but
it's slight, yeah. It's like,
but it's there. It's definitely more polished than Koryun is for sure.
Yeah, and you know, but it's like a difference of, you know, if Air is a 10 out of 10, Koryun's like easily a 9, like a very like a solid 9.
I agree with that.
So
the power-up system too makes it really
all the different weapons. Cool. There's so many weapons throughout the game. There's
combinations.
Yeah, and you know, the different the buddies that you pick that you can morph into, that adds replay value because certain levels.
Speaking of the buddies, do you know the difference between this one and the US one with one of the buddies?
No, what is the difference?
Yeah, so you know the Moo power up?
Oh yeah, the cow guy.
When you fuse with Moo, you're shooting like
milk jugs.
Out of like milk cans, milk jugs out of your hands. Well, in the Japanese one,
oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no.
He pretty much, you know where I'm going. He's like this, and he's shooting right out of them couch hitters.
How did I not know that? I may never have played the Japanese Air Zonk.
Yep. And Zonk is like wearing like lipstick and wearing heels, and he's like this, and he's just like.
Oh my god! How did I not know this? I have to go play this as soon as we're done. As soon as we're done, I'm gonna go get PC Engine and get Moo in there.
There's a little tidbit for you.
PC Engine is a there's some perverts. There's like some perverted sort of. It's harmless and it's largely harmless. But I would say maybe when
half
you get
of the library on the Japanese consoles animate titties, like so.
Yeah, there's some weird shit in there. But you know, and when you get into PCFX, I would argue it gets a little more like, okay, this probably this shouldn't exist.
This is softcore porn to porn, basically.
Like, some shit on the PCFX should not exist. Should definitely.
You're like, whoa.
Yeah, like that should just be eliminated from humanity. But PC Engine came up to the line, and you know, it's funny in a way that, you know, it really. I wish they maybe could have found a way to lean into that in a way that would have appealed to the West a little more, because it really is the identity of the PC Engine was, you know, we are the extremely Japanese console. You know, and we don't care what you think about it.
That would have been so bad though, like for, you know, in terms of like, think about what Mortal Kombat was doing, you know, or Night Trap for that matter. You know,
getting
so
Joe
you know,
Lieberman
you
all
try to sell. Yeah, so if you try to do that with the PC Engine and, you know, bring over some like, you know, breasty shooty game, like Steam Hearts.
Oh, Steam Hearts would have
been.
Yeah, that would have given.
Steam Hearts has some scenes like.
God, I mean, so many.
Steam Hearts is a bit much.
How do you describe it? Where basically, like a lot of American game consoles were so just. I lack words and vocabulary to describe this thing. Where basically people were so cautious of doing anything that would upset anyone. They were always so like just risk averse in terms of bringing over anything that was overtly sexual or anything like that. Just because the American market was so protectionist against that in terms of like, oh, we can't, you know, can't get in trouble if like we're accused of corrupting the children, you know, stuff like that.
Because back then, you know, the idea was that only children played video games.
Yeah, like there was no like.
If you asked anybody, you know, you know, you're an adult playing video games. They're like, why? You know, what's wrong with you? So I think that's the main thing is that, you know, children. The idea was that only children consumed video games.
Yeah, where Japan, it was everybody.
Right. And boomers.
It was here too. It just wasn't marketed.
It wasn't marketed that way.
Everyone was consuming video games here as well.
Well, I mean, that's probably because when the NES launched here, it was in toy stores. You know, they didn't launch in electronic stores like, you know, the like the Atari and the Intellivision and stuff. Like the Nintendo, their way of getting into the American living room was through toy stores. And
even though they were trying to market it as an entertainment device that was not a toy, which is hilarious.
But it worked, because the gaming industry in this country, I mean, we have all heard this story a million times, but the gaming industry in this country was more or less dead around, the mid 80s. And, Nintendo found another way in. It was as a toy, at least, just to get the ball rolling. And then once you actually owned it or got into it, you realized, oh, this is for anybody. You can play RoboCop and Terminator and shit on here, But anyway, what were we talking about? We were going in
three favorite games or Airsock?
We were going in some direction on something that I was enjoying.
No, I disrupted that in terms of what?
No, I think you
softcore porn on the.
Then everything.
Yes, let's get back to Steam Hearts.
Yeah, Steam Hearts, man, that would have been a hard sell. So first off, like the main character is a hermaphrodite, right? Like it's a guy and his hermaphrodite twin sister or something, and they're trying to like.
That's the least of its
Farah,
problems.
the main character, Farah. Yeah, she's that. Well, I mean, that idea would not have sold in Japan. That's like, okay, whatever. She's a hermaphrodite. You couldn't bring that here, right?
Right.
And the idea of the game is that, this pair, they're like these like bounty hunters who are not affected by this virus that everyone else is affected. And so the only way that they can cure these girls from the virus is to have the character that has the equipment to do stuff, to like inject the vaccine, which is forcibly in their bloodstream because they're not affected by this virus. Yeah. So the sister or the girl holds down like these like other girls.
It's horrible.
And
it's horrible.
She's like, go for it, brother. Just like, let's cure her, kind of thing. But yeah, could you imagine something like that being released in the West?
The full force of a Western marketing right behind that. Going right into that game title. You're like, wait a second.
Dude, welcome to the next level.
It would have had people just heads exploding everywhere.
Yeah.
So it's called Steam Hearts, you said?
Yeah. Steam Hearts, yeah.
Don't play it. Just don't.
For PC Engine. If you do play it, play the Saturn version. It's much better.
Oh, there's a Saturn version? Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Saturn version is much smoother. If you don't want to see nipples, they remove all the nipples.
Look at the title screen. It seems so tame.
I mean, the gameplay itself is fairly average, I guess. Like, it's kind of an average shoot 'em up.
It is. It's a totally mediocre shoot 'em up. It's not like it doesn't try to do anything crazy.
Yeah.
It's pretty basic. It's not terrible. But
no, it's not terrible.
It's not great. It's really not great.
At times, it sort of comes off as the filler, and what you're really playing is for these, traumatizing scenes.
Yeah, yeah. Which really so like the PC Engine one is way more risque though than the Saturn one. Yeah, I mean, Saturn one they cropped out stuff and they put clothes on the girls.
Man, before the internet, people worked so hard for pornography.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lost art.
It sold games.
It did. It still does. Senran Kagura, games like that, people still loving them.
Oh yeah.
Even though that's way more lighthearted, I would argue, and less of an issue.
Yeah.
But
that one's more. That's fan service more than anything.
Right.
I would say. Extremely large breasts on ninjas, and they're very agile, so they're flopping about. I mean, Dead or Alive did it. They're flopping.
I enjoy. They're Muso games. I love Muso games, so I like them.
Yeah, they're very actiony, hack and slash kind of games, easy to get into.
Yep, just put on a podcast or whatever and play. That's what I do sometimes with a lot of games. So I like games where I can just kind of like turn the sound way down and put on the news or put on a podcast or whatever, and kind of do both.
Just play in the background. Yeah, I used to do that with like Fate Extella or any kind of those.
Yeah, that's a great one. Berserk. Yep. Band of the Hawk. Yep.
Band of the Hawk, and just kill a bunch of shit and hear your podcasts.
Yep. Xenocrisis, another one that I think goes well with it. Anyway, so let's pick our top Hudson games just for fun. It's impossible to do, of course. And then we'll wrap. And so what I need to do is I need to differentiate, I guess, between like the different, because for me, Bomberman has to be in there. So I guess I have to go with Bomberman 94 because that's just the one, I guess, really kind of perfected it. 93 is close. The original is close. But, and you ask me this again in 24 hours, my opinion would probably be different,
Yeah, that's how it is with me. Like sometimes it's like, man, so many.
Yeah, so it's just, so I try not to, I don't put a lot of stock behind it because it'll be different tomorrow and it'll be different a week from then. But at this moment, little snapshot right now, I guess I would say Airzonk, number 1, probably. Bomberman 94, close number 2. Soldier Blade, close number 3. I mean, they're all just, I don't even know if I would really even want to rank them, but Soldier Blade is like the perfect top-down shmup in almost every measurable way. Bomberman 94 is a perfectly executed Bomberman game, arguably the best one, at least in terms of that original format. And then, Airzonk, side-scrolling shmup, queued 'em up, perfected, more or less perfected. So they're sort of the kings of their little genres in that way. So those are mine, with an honorable mention having to go out to JJ and Jeff, which I don't think quite rises to the level of, getting its own segment in this episode, but is a fun game. I really I like it. I can't intellectually defend it in a lot of ways, but I do.
I guess this game was a fucking mess.
It's kind of a mess, yeah, especially when it tries to be hard later, and it's really just getting worse. It's just getting worse.
Yeah.
But there's a charm to it, especially if you play Kato and Ken-chan, the Japanese version. You'll laugh out loud. You will laugh out loud. It's funny and it's fun.
Very slapsticky.
Very slapsticky, very absurd. I think I'm also gonna put that in the weird PC Engine video that we're gonna do.
But it needs to be there.
Yeah, and I haven't covered Kato and Ken-chan at all on my channel, so, and it's one of my favorite ones. Yeah, it's weird. That one's kind of squeaked by.
It's just goofy and weird, yeah.
Yeah, very Japanese, very fun. And there's pee. He's peeing on stuff a lot. So
peeing, farting,
so much pee.
So much pee.
So anyway, it's 11 over here, so I'm just, slap happy at this point. So anyway, so that's mine, I guess, at this point. Again, if you ask me tomorrow, it'd probably change, but that's more or less where I'm at. Ian, where are you at? If you had to pick your favorite Hudson Soft games, I'm sure Military Madness is probably in there.
Yeah, Military Madness is definitely up there. For sure, Bomberman 94, just because of my fun deployment memories of screaming at people in a barracks in the middle of nowhere. Playing that one's always pretty good.
I can vividly see that scene when you're describing it.
It was great. Like it was so dumb in terms of like what we had in this place in terms of. We had this like 4-man bay that was meant for 6 people, but there was only 4 of us in there, and we had like extra space. So we bought this giant inflatable curved couch that was just a giant piece of crap. And so we're like on that thing around like a 32-inch monitor that I had my like Raspberry Pi plugged in, and just screaming at each other, and people like coming in from the barracks going, "What the hell's going on in here?" Because we're just like shouting.
That's so funny.
There's 5 people just playing it, just yelling at each other. So great times.
Yeah,
with that one.
Sure.
Military Madness is a great one because I played that one a lot by myself. And then like Blazing Lasers is one that I really, really kind of like. And like I guess R-Type 1 apparently was published by Hudson Soft, but I don't know if that really counts.
That feels. I mean, that's an IREM game, really.
Yeah. So that one
so
I'm
they
kind of like
published it.
Yeah. So I don't know if that really counts or not, but like. So I think that Bonk, that Military Madness were definitely ones that. If I had to pick just Hudson Soft games that were developed by them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Sarah? What are you thinking?
So for me, it's kind of hard because the ones that I liked are like either co-developed. If I have to think of like one that was like straight developed by Hudson.
Hey, don't overthink it. I mean, if it feels right, then put it in.
That's true. Because Airzonk was also
Red.
co-developed by Nagsat and Red. Yeah Red, so. Nagsat. And Hudson, so there's a lot of hands in that one. Then I guess I would say Star Proteer, even though the base was developed by Kaneko, Hudson did have a big hand in it. So much of its IPs were Hudson.
It's arguably the most Hudson game out of all of them.
Yeah, it's like the most, But Star Proteer is just a fun overhead shooter, very colorful, and like I said, what other game can you be an actual PC Engine? I am always the PC Engine when I play that game. Always. 100% all the time. always the PC Engine. I love playing as the PC Engine. Another two games are also other games that weren't fully developed by Hudson. They were like co-developed. Like New Adventure Island was Now Pro, I think. I mentioned last week Jackie Chan, I think, was also Now Pro as well.
Yep.
So both of those games, you know, they're both co-developed and published by Hudson. But Hudson,
they got that Hudson polish.
They had that Hudson polish, but the base game, the base itself, the programming was done by Now Pro, and Hudson's like, okay, thank you. Now we're gonna put all our, you know, shit on top of it, and then we'll publish it. And that's pretty much a lot of games they did that, where they would have, you know, a developer makes the base game, and then Hudson, you know, has their people, and they come and they decorate it, right, to make it Hudson-y. And that's what happened with New Adventure Island and Jackie Chan. But man, if I'm trying to think of like a straight like Hudson developed game, maybe the Momotarou Katsugeki, which is like what is that? What did you say? Madden?
Madden. Well, wasn't like Madden was like Hudson's, like they got the rights to do Madden, but they outsourced it to somebody else. Something like that. Right. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Hudson Soft published game or something along those lines. I was trying to find information about it, but I couldn't find. I wanted to make the joke, but it didn't come together.
He's talking about it's called like Turbo CD Football or something, right? And it's like a CD
they actually
game.
had a Madden version, apparently.
Really?
If I remember correctly, but I can't find.
I don't remember. I thought it was like Turbo CD Football.
Yeah, that rings a bell for me. But I've never cared about sports games. I still don't care about sports games. I've never really.
Oh, I don't either. I don't either. The whole Madden thing's funny because it was like then you see Hudson Soft.
It's called Duo CD Football. That's
okay.
Duo CD Football, featuring John Madden.
Right.
And John Madden said like the same three lines like over and over again.
Touchdown! That's a touchdown right there.
Yeah.
That's a touchdown right there.
Typical John Madden, contributions.
Yeah.
But I think Hudson did develop that, actually. So
that's funny.
That's funny.
Fair enough then.
Well, I know there was like a gimmick where like an ambulance would come on the field and hit people or something like that.
Right?
Okay.
Shit, I would have bought that.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen. Well, I appreciate you all coming in and having this conversation with me this evening. I think we've more or less hit on. I think probably should have maybe spent a little more time on New Adventure Island, but that's okay. I think we more or less summarized the vibes that Hudson was capable of. I think my big takeaway from them is just consistent high quality, the versatility. The shooters, platformers, strategy games, dungeon crawlers. I mean, they had their hand in everything, and they did at least a good job with everything they did, at least back then.
Yeah.
And arguably since, because they made,
the exception of Bonk 3, but
okay, yeah, fair enough. Bonk 3 was shaky. But generally speaking, who else can you depend on at that time to put out that many games in that short of a period of time, and such a high percentage of them to be so good, right? Like,
and not only for themselves, but for other people as well.
Yeah.
During that time, because they were putting out stuff for themselves, and then they were developing stuff for Nintendo and whoever else.
It was like
Konami.
I feel like the thing that kept TurboGrafx alive as long as it did was Hudson Soft's strong back.
Yeah,
because they were the only ones carrying that console in any way.
They had, if it weren't for that, I mean, they would, they have a few Namco games, a couple other things here and there. There wouldn't be much at all.
And even Namco bowed out early on because they released some stuff and then they were like,
not doing that well.
Didn't release anything else on it. Yeah.
Yeah. You're not getting Dragon Spirit. You get Dragon Spirit, but not Dragon Saber, which is wild because Dragon Saber is a, better game.
Actually, they both came out in Japan. They did.
Oh yeah, they both did. I just mean Saber didn't come out on the Turbo.
Oh yeah.
We just
that would have helped it. That would have helped it a lot.
I think so.
Localized good games? No, we're gonna pay 2 American companies to make bad games. Don't worry.
Yeah.
It'll work.
Yeah, we got things like Darkwing Duck and
good lord,
Camp California or whatever. It's like, what the fuck?
I've tried
fucking games.
I've tried 2 separate times now to make a bad TurboGrafx games video. Because there's just enough bad ones to make like a good 25-minute video.
Oh, yeah.
And I can't fucking do it. I can't get through it. I
You
can't
play through those games.
I don't want to make negative, like, complaining content. Like, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel right. It's just, I can't do it. I can't.
AVGN video like ass.
Yeah, I can't do that. So maybe one day when I'm truly out of ideas, I'll go back to that well. But...
Yep. Or one day you're just in a bad mood and you're like, you know what? It's time to tear into these shit games.
Yeah,
right
I'm gonna
here,
tear
right
into
now.
Darkwing Duck, dude, for 20 minutes.
Oh my god, what a piece of shit game that was.
I know, and it sucks because anyway,
bad.
there were good Darkwing Duck games that Capcom made for
Right.
like
the NES one was amazing.
It was great.
It's like Mega Man with Darkwing Duck. You know?
Chip and Dale and all.
Awesome.
You know, they knew what they were doing over there. Anyway,
Yep.
Another conversation for another time, perhaps.
Yeah. Before this turns into a rant podcast.
Yeah. We've gone off the rails a couple of times. That's okay. That's part of the fun of the show, I think, is just letting things fly off the handle a little bit, and that's okay.
Sure.
So, but yeah, if you're watching this still at this point, make sure you check out Ian's channel, Historic Nerd. Go check him out. He's still doing streams. When's your next stream, Ian? It might not be relevant by the time this episode goes up, but go ahead and tell me.
So I'm probably done streaming for March, unfortunately, because I got some field training I'm doing for a while, and then I'm going on a little vacation. But usually, if I do stream, it's Fridays and Saturdays.
Okay, great.
Or mostly Fridays.
And you're pretty much doing it from right there, right where you are right now.
Yeah, right here.
Yep. Cool deal. And also check out Sarmaru's channel. Been really enjoying your show. I've always enjoyed your stream show. But lately, I think you're really on a roll with it. And it's a great time. It's a great watch. You and Panda are there answering comments. You can fill out the little survey and everyone gets their answers read. And it's a great show, man. Yeah. It's entertaining. I really like it. And, I recommend people watch it for sure.
Thank you. I appreciate that plug. Yeah. It's, we sit around, we talk about retro stuff. It's a good time.
Yeah.
They're always good, wholesome streams.
Yes, it is fairly wholesome. And it's just entertaining. I enjoy it. All right, guys. Well, that's it for episode 3, I guess, of House of HuCards. Right. I appreciate y'all. I'm not sure what we're going to do the next one on. Got a few ideas. I'm thinking maybe a Legendary Axe episode where we just talk about the 2 Legendary Axe games and just go super deep on them. I don't know.
Bad cover art would be great.
It's one of the big ideas floating around in my head.
Bad cover art, yeah.
Yeah, bad cover art.
Oh yeah. All right. Also, thanks for coming on, and we'll catch y'all on the next one. Have a good one.